This conference will now be recorded.
Hello everyone, welcome to day 3 in our Google Cloud Architect training. So before we go to the next module, which is Cloud IAM, just wanted to show you something realistic which is happening currently. So when you come to your GCP console, what is the first thing which attracts you, at least today, uh, grabs your attention today? So I guess anybody from any part of the world, if you log into the GCP console, you'll see something which is uh, stuff. What is that? Terms. Oh, you have some service terms or something popping up. So anything else apart from that which uh, draws your attention, folks? I have opened it in my console. I guess you are able to see my screen. So what is that which draws your attention, folks? I would say this is what draws my attention as a cloud architect. There is a service disruption. This orange color is an indication there is a service disruption specifically for Cloud SQL. And if you see this home preview, which is still in a this thing, it also shows that very easily. If you just come, it just shows there is a service disruption. It has started 6 hours ago. There's a ticket also. If you want, you can look into it, and you will know. And always, whenever you look something like an incident ticket, start from the bottom to understand what is the issue. And sometimes the Google SRE, Site Reliability Engineers, may give you some workaround. Unfortunately, this time there's no workaround. So I would strongly suggest you to spend some time, 10 minutes, to understand this kind of stuff so that you will have an idea uh, what kind of issues can occur, realistic stuffs, and how they do the workaround. That's going to be a good choice, is what I would say. Spend some time on it. And there are some news stuffs. People with SAP background can look into this one. There's something called as building a digital factory with SAP on Google Cloud. So that's interesting. And people with more of Azure background, you can look into this. So there's something new coming up, is what I feel. So look into this, folks. You'll get some idea. So just thought of sharing it so that you can spend some 5-10 minutes on that. Now going back to our second module. I guess you people are able to hear me, right? Hear and see my screen, right? Yes, no, yes, both. Yes, Kumar, what's the question? What's the question? Why we are not able to see the preview? Beautiful question. Okay, so thing is that they have, what it has been done is it is called as canary deployment. It is the same thing like you may have a friend in one part of the world and you may be in one part of the world. There could be a new feature in Telegram, a new feature in WhatsApp, but he or she may would have got it, but you may have not got it. The only reason is they would have rolled out it to some selected users, basically, or they would have done something called as a canary deployment. So that's the reason why you don't see it always, the all the features there. Um, uh, I'll show you one more this thing account in today's class, where in that account I may not have preview. It's basically selected users. That's it. Good question. Now let's go to our second module, folks. A very important module. I would say till the last day of our training, we will still be learning Cloud IAM. So that's how important it is. It's a horizontal, and whenever you create any architecture, so a cloud architect's role is mostly, first part is to understand the requirement and create an architecture. So whenever you create an architecture, right? So let's assume you are creating an architecture. This is the canvas using Visio, any tool. I usually write something like this. Sorry. I usually I usually draw, if this is my architecture, I put a line called as IAM. indicating it is an horizontal. I may have VM, it may point some GCS bucket, something. That's fine. That's all fine. But the first thing which I do is at the bottom I put this is horizontal. So throughout the stuff, IAM has to be there. So that's a important thing. So very important. So let's go and discuss this in detail. And as every module we go, we'll look into some specific stuffs for that specific module, how the IAM works. Okay. With that background, let's understand what is IAM. IAM is an acronym. It stands for Identity and Access Management. So there are two parts, identity and access. So how do you manage the identity? How do you manage the access? So in simple terms, if you were to explain this, basically, who can do what on which resource. So those three W's are going to be very important here. Basically, the who is nothing but an identity. So what is an identity? In very, very simple terms, I would usually make this as a email, nothing else. At least in GCP. I don't know about other clouds, so but at least in GCP, the identity is always a email ID, folks. Simple as that, and don't make it very complicated. It's just an email ID, and it may have different forms. The name, so the email ID could be as simple as your Gmail ID, which you are using, or it could be slightly different. What are those different emails? We'll look into it. But an identity is basically a email. Simple. Then once you have an identity, you should give some roles, right? So what is a role? Should this user be able to create a project, or the user should be able to inside the project what this person can do? So that's the role. So what part now? Maybe let's take an example of an employee. Employee joins a, for simplicity reason, I'm going to take, there are two types of organizations. I can take it as a product based organization and a service based organization. So let's take service based organization in this context. So an employee joins, so he gets an email ID. So that's where he can have the interaction, and his role is cloud architect, CA. Now you have given him the cloud architect. Now, if you don't, or his designation itself may be called as cloud architect in the offer letter also. So he has a role, this thing on, but on which resource? Here, he's an architect for which project in that organization, whether it's a customer's implementation or the internal implementation. On which resource is important? You may be a cloud architect, but on which resource is important. So if you just create an identity and don't give role, or even if he has role but he's not allocated to a project, so usually in service organization they call it as bench. So it is like, if you just create an identity, have a role, you're already, it's like the person is already in a bench. So only when you assign it to a specific resource is where the value comes into picture. So there is a role, there's an identity, it has to be binded and should be given to a specific resource, then only it is going to be complete. So then only the person is going to start working on the project like in a real world. So he should not be in bench, so he or she should work for a project. So he has an identity, um, a role, and the role has been tagged or assigned to a specific project. This is all is what is cloud identity, uh, IAM access management, which we are going to see. The most important thing is identity. So let's look into what are the types of identities which you can have. Then slowly we move into the kind of roles which you can have, and how you can uh, attach that, use that, to which resource we should attach. We'll look into it. Okay. So the first thing is the types of identities. So you can have these five types of identities basically. The first and the foremost one, email ID, is what we know. Maybe we can put a small update in our cheat sheet so that we can capture it very well. Uh, Examination tip, identity in GCP. is nothing but an email ID. That's it. Simple. The first identity is nothing but Google account. So the email ID is going to be something like @gmail.com. Simple, straightforward. But the most important thing with this identity is the person can call APIs. So in our last class, we saw how we can call a REST API with the Gmail ID, because I have created my Google account itself. Access to my Google account itself is via my Gmail ID. And I was also able to interactively log into my GCP web console. So I can do these things very easily. Now, but what's the problem with this Gmail ID? The problem is this is attached to an individual. Now, if it's a big organization and organization name is something like my app or example, assume example.com is the organization. So in that organization, if I need to get access as an employee, I should not give access to their Gmail ID because it's personal. The person can be in the organization for some time, can leave the organization after some time. So controlling that email ID becomes difficult for me. So if you are, this should be the Gmail should be only used for self-learning purpose. But when it is an organization, the access should be always given using two other options, which is Google Workspace or Cloud Identity Domain. So these are the better ways when you're giving access uh, in an organization. So Google Workspace previously is called was called as G Suite, somewhat equivalent to your Office 365. Um, that's one option where you're going to get example.com. So your email ID would be your company's domain @ your company name.com. So example.com. So this is something easier to control. If the employee joins, I create the identity. If the employee leaves, I just disable the identity. So as an admin, I have the control to that email ID. Whereas the Gmail, it is controlled by the individual. So for learning purpose, Google account is fine. But when it comes to organization, you are always going to give access to something like user @example.com. So workspace is one option where you get the same experience, no difference, but you are using a corporate account basically. Um, this Google Workspace, if you were to have it, you have to purchase the subscription, all those things, and it is per user based subscription usually. Um, it's a SaaS offering basically. There is basic, some different tiers, so each individual user is going to be a cost. And this workspace or Google G Suite works very well if you are totally a startup. So if it's a startup, then this is going to work. The reason is you may not have any active directory or anything. So startups, it will work very well. Startups, because they don't have anything, so they wanted to start directly in Google. So you can start getting a G Suite account plus a Google account, both. So you start giving them the access. This works. But if you are a very big organization already having Active Directory or LDAP in your organization, and you are planning to move some of your workloads to GCP, and you want to give few of your employees access, then cloud identity domain is a good option. What you do is, um, the interface looks both the same. So I'm going to show you how it looks like. It looks the same. The only thing is that if you have activated Google Workspace along with the identity management, you also get access to Google Meet, Google Docs, Google Drive, all those collaborative environments. So you may say, I also get it, Mahesh, with my Gmail ID. So what you get in Gmail ID is going to be a free. So you may get 15 GB of Google Drive space. But if you activate your G Suite or Google Workspace, you get more. And if you use your Google Meet, the normal Google Meet with your Gmail ID, you cannot record it. But if you use a G Suite account, you can record it. So you get some benefits when you have that SaaS offering from Google. So you are going to get a collaborative environment and also a environment where you can provision your infrastructure, that is in your GCP. Uh, because you are already an existing organization who has Active Directory, all those things, and you don't want to create one more such kind of a stuff, this is going to work for enterprise. So this is going to work very well for your enterprise where they just use cloud identity domain, and this is totally free. And there's also a premium version of it. If you want, you can activate it. But I feel uh, uh, a free version itself is good enough. Where I just give, I just create a map my identity and start using it. Simple. So simple, but when I have cloud identity, I will have access only to GCP resources, not to G Suite, not to Gmail, nothing. So I'll have only access to my GCP resources. So that's my third identity. So this is the first, second, third. Now, it's a good practice that you would have learned or heard. Whenever you give access to somebody, always create a group. Don't directly give it to an individual. It could be anything. It's not GCP specific, anything. Always give access to groups. That's going to be a better way. The reason is managing this identities is going to be easy. The roles is going to be easy. So I create a group, add everybody to there. Say, for example, there could be a group in your organization called as cloud architect -coe@example.com. So all center of excellence. So all the people who join this organization as cloud architect, they're going to be added to this group. And if you want to give them access, just use this group email ID and give them the access. So it becomes easier. So with a group, what you can do basically is you can have created a group, and you can create groups in GCP or sorry in Google in two ways. So one is a googlegroup.com, basically a standard one where you don't need, you can also usually use it now also. Even with your Gmail ID, you can just go create a Google group. Maximum 6 groups you can create, if I'm not wrong. There's a quota there. You can create it. And if it's an organization, you can also create a group like group name @example.com. So both options are possible. So if you're using Google Groups, we are going to do a demo on that Google Groups at a later point of time, where I can add folks and give them the access. But one important thing is using the group email ID, you cannot log into the GCP console call APIs. Rather, the members inside this group can log in. Please remember this. Group is just a container or a placeholder to put everybody in one place and give them access. But if you just use this group, it's not going to allow you basically. So that's your Google group, and you can create it in two fashions, in an organization and also in your Gmail. So 1, 2, 3, 4 different ways of having the identity. Uh, all this four usually belongs to a human being, to a person. But there are situations where you should not give access to a person, but it should be something between two services, a virtual machine and a storage bucket, a virtual machine and a database, or it could be a database and a storage bucket, anything of this combination. So why you need it such kind of a stuff? Because I may be in this project for 2 months. My billing is only for 2 months, so I would have set up everything. I would have set up some scripts or anything where from I do some processing using my virtual machine. I want to dump that into my Google Cloud storage. Now, if I use my ID to do everything, after 2 months, I move to a different project or I leave the organization. The script, the automated script which is written, it's going to break because the moment the employee leaves the organization or joins a different project, the access would be revoked. So to avoid that, what we usually do is we create something called a service account. And again, I have heard the stories from the in the past. Whenever people hear service account, they feel little difficult to understand. And remember the tip which we started with. This is also nothing but an email ID. Simple. If you think it is an email ID, everything becomes simple. The only thing is that the domain is going to be little weird. It's not going to be @ your companyname.com. It's not going to be your gmail.com, but it's going to be something called as developer.gservice, or to be very frank, it's going to be most of the time ending with gserviceaccount.com. googleserviceaccount.com. So it may have some prefix before, but most of the time it's going to be, not most, every time it's going to be gserviceaccount.com. So whenever you see an email ID which indicates gserviceaccount.com, it's clearly a service account. SA, usually they call it as SA, service account. Now, one most important thing is, this is the most important thing, folks. Using your service account, you cannot log into the console. You can only log in, call APIs, meaning, I guess somebody had asked this, is there anything which we cannot do via UI? Um, so most of the organizations try to block access to your UI by this. I've seen organizations where they are going to create a service account, share the details with you, and they will not give you access to your email ID. They'll give a service account, they'll give the details. They will ask you to impersonate as a service account and do it. So why? Because if you do something in the UI, it is the same thing. If you have access to a console, you can do lots of stuff. You can delete something out of ignorance, because you have not explored it. But if you were to do something via API, via G-Cloud commands, you should be knowing the command very correctly. So it is like playing around with a Windows machine versus playing around with a Linux machine. So only if you know the command, you can play around. So this is the most important thing for the rest of our class. So yes, these identities are going to be helpful, but most of the stuff, because at one point of time, every cloud architect has to move on to a different project. So whenever you design two services, when two services are interacting, the way they are going to authenticate themselves is with the help of the service account. A very, very important thing, and simple way to understand it, it is also a email ID, and service account is always going to have gserviceaccount.com as a domain. Please remember that. And let me just stop here for any questions, folks. This is very important. You cannot log into the console. In the entire slide, if you ask me, this is the only point which you should be aware of. Without this, with and I'll show you why this person cannot, or this service account cannot log into the console in a very simple terms once we go to the demonstration. So if there's no question, let's see how this account, so what exactly they will be doing with a service account. So authenticate, so we saw in our day one class, right, Kumar, trust nothing by default, authenticate every time. So you have a virtual machine, you have a storage bucket, even though it is in the same project, it has going to authenticate every time. So how it's going to authenticate, it's going to show that I am using this identity. The identity is my service account. It's going to prove it itself. This is my identity, and I have access to a storage bucket. Allow me. So that's what it's going to do. Any kind of background work. So there are some times where your service account gets automatically created, using which you are going to access another service. Say for example, a database. From a database, you need to access a Google Cloud Storage bucket. The database is going to have one service account, and you have to give some read access to your bucket. So that's where the service account comes into picture. So wherever there's no human involved, but there's going to be some APIs or some machines needs to talk each other, that's where your service account comes into picture. All right. Hope that answers your question. Now, a question for you people. How do you create, so if I have an Active Directory, can I use Active Directory username as an identity? Yes, it is possible. How to do that? We are going to see it. So there's something called as a sync. Google Cloud Directory Sync, using which you can do it, but it is possible, and this is going to work in place, Vijay. So I'll show you how to do that towards the end. So there's a slide on that, and we will also do a small demonstration on that. It is possible if you have already an Active Directory username. So now, how do you create a Google account, folks? Everybody knows it. So how do you create a Google account? Just go to accounts.google.com, right? That's it. just go to accounts.google.com and create an account. So that's it. So that's going to be the simplest way. So if I just go to I just need to go create it here, straightforward. Email ID. So I'm just going to put this as a small tip, maybe very basic, but can be really helpful. Create Gmail using. So this is where I log in. Now, if I have a corporate, I want to give access to a person, or basically I want to, there's a new employee and I have to give him access, have to create an email ID and then share the credentials. How do I do it is, and assume I don't have Active Directory. Then what you can do is, usually you can go to, and you cannot use this currently, only if you have a domain you can use it. There is a portal called as admin.google.com. So admin.google.com, where if you have a domain, like for example, I have a domain registered, and on our first class or second class we had seen you can have a organization node. So if you use free trial account, you're going to have no organization. If you have a domain, you're going to have the domain as your organization name. So if you have such things, basically you can use admin.google.com, where you can go ahead and create an identity. So, and each identity is going to have a name as @learngcp-with-mahesh.com. So what's your organization domain? It's going to have it. So this is how it's going to show, like admin.google.com. Let me just make a note of it. To create a corporate account, use. So I'm just going to mention it as Google Workspace, or previously called as G Suite, and cloud identity. What is cloud identity? Let me explain it in a minute. So I have to use this one. So this is cloud identity. How I can show you that this is cloud identity is, let me create a user, folks. Let me create a user. I already have a couple of users. So let me create one user. So create a user. So I'm going to call it as batch 6 PCA. You see this batch 6 PCA, and my email ID is going to be @learngcp-with-mahesh.com. So that's the domain. So that's it. Create a password. Ask the password to change it. Okay. Just add the user. I'm just going to create an identity. So this is the identity. So let me just copy this email. I will go in a private window in my Edge browser. So I'm just going to go to something like google.com. Google.com. If you see, I have not even signed into anything. So let me just sign in. Let me go to sign in. Don't switch. So here I can mention my email, which was just created right now. The password, I should get it here. Copy the password. It's going to prompt us to change it. Done. If I just go, let me just change my password. Done. So I have logged in, and if you see now, it's going to be showing an extra information which you will not see it in your normal Gmail. Now this account is managed by the organization to which this email belongs to. Then you can say, now anyway he has logged in, can he see his Gmail? Look at this. Do you see anywhere Gmail, folks? You don't see it. You don't see Gmail. You don't see the other stuffs like Google Drive, all those things. So now if I try to go there also by just typing Gmail, gmail.com, it's going to show me you don't have access to Gmail. You see this? We are sorry you don't have access to Gmail. Please contact your organization administrator. What is this indicates is this is basically a cloud identity account. So which can you can use this identity, this email address to give access to GCP, but you cannot access G Suite or Google Workspace. So like your Google Drive, all those things. Okay, so that's the most important thing. So this is your cloud identity. So if I then go to console.cloud.google.com, yes, you can. If I go to console.cloud.google.com, I should be able to see it, my console. It's basically like how you had a Gmail ID you registered. It's the same thing which you're going to do, but this user is going to have something additional by default. What is that? It's going to be having an org node because he has logged in with his @learngcp with mahesh.com domain, right? So it's going to have an org node already. So let me just show you that. The sign up process is going to be little, yeah. So it's going to show the same stuff. Now if I see, okay, let me accept the terms of the service. I agree. So I don't want to activate a free trial account, so I'm just going to dismiss it. What I will see is I'll see no organization. Also, I will see this organization because my email ID is having that, right? So I'm going to have this, but I'll not see any projects basically. So this is what you get with cloud identity domain, and what you get additional with your G Suite is or Google Workspaces access to Gmail, all those things. So usually what I have seen is uh, startups prefer this option because anyway they will not have any infrastructure, data center or anything. So they just activate a Google Workspace and also get Google GCP account activated. They start using it. And I had worked in one such organization where they had zero infrastructure. Everything was in cloud basically. So this is your second, the third option basically. So we can create the account with accounts.google.com, or for workspace or identity, it's going to be the same interface, folks. So this is going to be the same interface even when you have access to G Suite, admin.google.com. So only thing is that you are going to give access to those apps, all those things that is going to be there. And how do you create a group? Just go to groups.google.com and you should be able to create it. Let me just show you that. Google Groups. Uh, So if you see the user who have logged in, it's a normal user which has Gmail ID. So even if you have a Gmail ID, you can create a group basically. Let me see whether I can show you that. Okay, so I have this user. So now I've already created few groups here. So if you want, you can create further groups. Yes, I should be able to create one group. So if I just create it as batch 6 uh, demo, look at my email ID, folks. Batch 6 hyphen demo group. Click next. Leave everything default, only invited users. Yes. Now I can add a user here, something like I have a standard email ID which I use it for demonstration. Add it. That's it. Send a welcome note. So the group can get created or not because I may have a quota limit of 6 already. Stas. Create a group. So the group is created. If you go here to your group, you should be able to see it. So now how to configure the multi-factor authentication? Is that possible for a free trial account? For a free trial account, multi-factor authentication, if you ask, what is the account you are using? Basically, your Gmail ID is what you are using, right? So if you just go to your accounts in your Gmail ID, the account setting, you can turn on multi-factor authentication there. So if you turn it on, then it's going to show, because to access your GCP stuffs, you have to always use your Gmail. So for your Gmail, you turn on your multi-factor authentication, then it's going to reflect even to your GCP. So that's how we are going to do it, Vijay. So it's nothing to do with GCP per se, but it is something outside of GCP. The reason why I'm showing basic is Gmail, your workspace, your identity, your Google group, you're creating all these things outside of GCP, meaning that's not part of GCP. You have to manage it somewhere else. So even is your multi-factor authentication. So if you just go, uh, if you want to manage your multi-factor authentication, go to your accounts.google, myaccounts.google.com. Make sure you turn on your under security. You'll have multi-factor authentication. Turn on this. Uh, there should be an option here to turn on your multi-factor authentication. Here, two-step. Turn it on. So this way you can do it. So the key part is the identity is not managed in GCP. It is outside of GCP. It could be accounts.google.com or it could be admin.google.com, but it is not in console.cloud.google.com. I wanted to make it very clear. So hope that is clear, Vijay. Uh, if you want, you turn it at your GCP side. Sorry, at your Gmail, at your account where you are having it. I can turn on multi-factor authentication even for my free trial. So there's nothing to do with the identity here. That's a key part. Uh, the only thing which you can create, and I'll not do this for me, it's already enabled, but if I log in, it is not asking. No, you would have mentioned don't prompt me on this laptop. You would have checked that part basically. That is the reason it would not have asked you every time. So if you join with a new device, then it's going to ask you basically. Then it's going to ask you how do we integrate with Active Directory, all those things. We'll come to that towards the end, Mansoor, so don't worry about it. So we'll first finish this part. So if I start totally talking about the integration, it's going to be a little overkill in the beginning. So we saw four options how to create all those things. Similarly, if you want to create a group in an organization, I can use my admin.google.com. So here the organization which the group which I create, I get two flavors. So one, let me just create one group, uh, create a group. So when I create a group, let me create something like batch 6 GW Google Workspace. So I can have something like, so when I do this, I get two flavors because I'm in the organization, right? It could be at the rate the organization name, or I will also have an option for, okay, I will also, I should also have an option to create googlegroups.com. So there is an option why it's not showing up. If I do it here, it's going to show like that. Okay. Okay. So I can create a group like this. Let me just show you. So what they can have, who can see it, all those things I can do it. And this is an important thing when you create a group inside your organization. Should outsiders be allowed? Make sure it is turned off. By default, it's turned off. You create it. You can add members if you want. at a later point of time. So this is how you can create group in an organization also. So there's no members, I can add a member. uh, the batch 6 which we just created, batch 6 PCA user, I added it. So 2 people added into this group. So if I refresh it, it should show me the stuff. It should show me the stuff there. That's it. Now the only thing which you can create in GCP, the only identity which you can create in GCP is basically your service account. This is the only identity which you can create. All other things are managed outside of GCP. The only identity stuff which you are going to create in GCP is your service account. Let me just show you how do we create it. So we are first seeing how the identity can be created, because if you don't know how to create an identity, there's no point in using the term identity. So let me just show you how do you create that identity. So click on the hamburger menu or the navigation menu, and under IAM and admin, you'll have an option called as service account. Click on service account. You already have one service account created, which we know, which was created by when we enabled our compute engine API. That is the reason why it was created. Now you want to create an email ID, a service account basically. Click on create service account. So let me call this as batch 6 IAM. Now look at this, folks. What does this indicate when you look at this one? What does that strike you when you look at this part basically? Any thoughts,
It's the
folks?
project name.
Project ID. The
Yes.
project ID. It's a project ID. So now you understand why the project ID should be kept sensitive. The reason is it's going to be always, this is going to be the standard domain, iam.gserviceaccount.com. So the two things are important here. There's a project ID mentioned, and there's also going to be it's a service account. By just looking at the email ID, this is my email ID, this is going to be my email ID. So it's a service account what I can get easily, and the service account is going to have project ID sometimes or project number sometimes. So don't disclose this details outside. So if there's a bad guy, he can try to use some of his GCP skills to uh, enter the system. It's going to be difficult, but you are disclosing, you are giving some hints to somebody. So why to invite troubles? So always keep your project uh, ID and number very secure. So uh, demo IAM. That's it. So I have created, if I just click on create, right, folks, what's going to happen is I'm going to have an email ID. So just click on create. Done. So this is an optional step. Wherever it is optional, I'm not going to do it now. So that's, it's going to be an overkill. Let's just leave it. So these are optional steps. Step 2 and step 3 are optional. I'm just going to click on done. Now when I click on done, what's going to happen is basically I have an email ID. So look at the email ID. It's always going to end with gserviceaccount.com. There may be some few more prefix. Ignore that. That's not an important thing. But to differentiate whether it's an email ID, whether it's a normal, it's an account which belongs to a human being or to a machine, you can easily make it out from the domain itself, gserviceaccount.com. It's always going to be gserviceaccount.com. So, and now we saw how the identity can be created. Now, a slightly out of topic question. What if I have a Yahoo account, a Hotmail account, or a Rediff account? Only maybe me and my friend is working or for a small project. He's preferring to use Yahoo for some various reasons. But both of us wants to work collaboratively. What could be the options which you can think of, folks? What could be the option? And he is not comfortable creating a Gmail account. And assume there's no corporate. So there's no corporate here. So he's not comfortable creating a Gmail ID. Maybe he had some bad experience. So that's the reason he switched to Yahoo account. So what would be the option which you can think of? Google Group.
Service account.
If you sorry.
Service account, right?
No, server. If you give him only access to service account, he may only get access to the
API.
command line. He will command lines. So he will never be able to see the console. That's one option. The only thing is that you are little bit making some kind of a discrimination. I will only use UI, you will only use command line. So uh, looks somewhat like that. But if you want to get the same, if your friend also wants to get the same experience, group will not work. Give a try. If you add somebody to Google group, which is non Gmail ID, it's not going to work, Kumar. So, but that's a good try. So this kind of stuff will come into picture. So in that case, what you can do is you can use this option. So I have already created a video. If you want, you can look into it. If you have a Yahoo, any other non-Google accounts, what you can do basically is create an identity. So what is this basically identity is you are proving that you are Mahesh, you are XYZ. So if you prove it with GCP, with Google, then you can use the identity anywhere, right? So you can look into this at a later point of time. How do you do this part? Basically, what you do is, if I go to accounts.google.com, assume for a minute, I have an email ID. Anything, folks, it can be even a organization also. So for example, just an hypothetical scenario, assume I'm working in Microsoft. If I'm working in Microsoft, definitely I will not have a I will definitely have a active directory there. So how I do is, for example, again an hypothetical scenario. So Microsoft wanted to has a small group. They wanted to explore what is GCP, maybe to understand the competitor. They have created this group. Now, assuming I'm in part of that group, now I wanted to get access to some of the stuff, and I don't want to create a Gmail ID. I want to use mahesh@microsoft.com as that's my corporate email ID. I want to use that. So what I will do is I'll come to accounts.google.com, give my details, but I'll not create a Gmail ID. Rather, I will use my existing email ID, mahesh@microsoft.com. So when I do this, enter my password, all those things, uh, enter my and when you enter this password, please make sure it's not your NT password. Please make it as a practice. So don't do that, so that you're using the same password everywhere. So for security reason, keep it something different, only for getting access to the Google identity. Then click next. When you do this next, what is going to happen is, to this email ID, you're going to get some OTP or a one-time password kind of a stuff, where you need to prove that yes, this ID belongs to you. That's the reason you get it. You enter the details, and you can then you have an Google identity, which is mahesh@microsoft.com. Now I can access GCP console, all those things with the same identity. So this is how you can access if it's a non-Google account. I have worked in this kind of stuffs in scenarios where in one of the organization they were using Active Directory, but the customer told, uh, and I wanted to access the customer's GCP console. They told, share us your corporate account. When they tried to give access, it was throwing a weird error, which I'll show you towards the end. What is that weird error? Maybe I can show you right now itself. Let me just copy this. Slightly a jump, but I just wanted to show you that what's going to happen if it's a non-Google account. So you wanted to give this person, Mahesh at Microsoft, access. If I do this, Okay, it's going to show me something like this. The email address or the domain must be associated with active Google account, like your Gmail, G Suite, Cloud Identity. So it should be, and actually this has to be changed to Google Workspace. So Google will change it at a later point of time. So it could be Google account. So how do I create a Google account? Use a procedure which I mentioned. Just go register it like this, then share the password, share the email ID, then they are going to give access to it. So you will always have this problem if your organization is Microsoft is having Active Directory and you want to get access to a GCP console, which is a customer stuff. They will ask to you to do this activity. So you must activate your create an identity using your corporate account. Then you should be able to the person can give access to your corporate account. Are you talking about B2C business, B2C to customers? I don't think so. What is the context here when it comes to B2C, Vijay? If you can be little more elaborate, it could help me out.
Yeah, B2C is in Azure. We can using B2C, we can business to consumer, like provide authentication to LinkedIn, other identity provider. Like
Okay, 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 okay. I've not explored that, so if it looks somewhat similar to that, yes. But if it's not to LinkedIn, Facebook kind of stuff, that's going to be Open ID kind of a stuff. So here it's basically I'm just registering my identity in Google. Basically, I'm just creating an identity. It has to be either one of them. Basically, it has to be either one of them. So this one, you have to be having a G Suite account. Here you should have a cloud identity account, or having a Google account is very easy. So that's the reason, to be very frank, in one of the organization I literally did this because that organization was not having a G Suite or not was having a cloud identity. So, and we need to get access to the customer's project quickly. So I did this, and this is a proper way, basically. The only thing is that even if I leave Microsoft after an year, this identity is still going to exist. But the only thing is that if there's any kind of a verification required, I will not be able to access mahesh@microsoft.com because I have already left Microsoft and I will not have access to my Gmail ID. So if you keep the password, all those things, the identity is going to remain. Maybe a little loophole, but moment the access to the email ID is revoked, you cannot reset the password or anything. Maybe if you have kept your phone number or something as a secondary option, you can reset the password. So that's the option which you get basically here. So if you have on Google account, you can use that trick of going to accounts.google.com, use your existing email ID, and you should be able to give access to it. So this is how you create identity. And the only identity which you can create in GCP is, why don't we put that? So
actually, normally we in my Azure we use like a e-commerce application, right? So that time we can give other identity provider like whoever um, Google authentication and LinkedIn, Facebook, using that log into the some e-commerce kind of application. So similar
hmm.
like that. So
No,
that's
no,
how
no.
we.
So for now, ignore that. For now, ignore that.
Okay.
So here, uh, if you have access to LinkedIn, right, you would have used an email ID, right, basically. So you'll
Yeah.
usually have a ID. So where you are going to use this OAuth authentication or Open ID. So that's what you are going to do basically there. So you're already having an identity there, and you're using the same identity to log into your LinkedIn or anything, if I'm not wrong,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So what we are talking is how you are going to create that identity, how you are going to create the identity, and how I can use that identity in GCP. That's
Okay.
what we
Got
are
it.
talking. Yeah.
Got it. Got it.
So yeah, to create a service account, I have to go to console.cloud.google.com. Use So now we have the complete picture. So, and the key part here which I wanted to convey is this is the only thing which can be created in GCP. Only identity created in GCP. All others are created in GCP. All other kind of identity is outside of GCP, meaning no overhead. Somebody else is going to manage the identity for us. So only the service account, you need to manage it with the right roles, all those things. Okay. So that's the important thing. The next part is the role. Now you created a identity, you have to give him a role, him or her a role, right? So when it comes to GCP, you're going to have three different types of roles basically. The first role is called as primitive role, so which is very broad access. So usually primitive roles are given at project level. So it is at a project level, meaning you can have something like owner. You are the owner of the project. Now when you activated your free trial account, what the role which you got for your email ID was nothing but your owner, and that was the reason why you were able to create a project, a new project. So, and there is a one level down to owner called as editor and viewer. More on what is editor viewer in next few slides. So these are the primary roles which you get. So you are the owner of the project, you are the editor of the project. So with an owner, you can create a project, delete a project, add users, all those things. Similarly, with editor role, you are going to have a lesser version of the owner. But this is very broad. So because it is broad, if I give somebody access as owner, editor, viewer, inside the project, how many resources you have, I can see all those resources easily. So which does not look very good and which is against the principle of least privilege. So what do you mean by principle of least privilege? If you are supposed to work on database, you are a database administrator. Now inside a GCP project is where I'm going to create a database. Now you should, and I may have a couple of VMs, I may have a couple of storage buckets. As a DBA, I should only have access to database. I should not be able to see see the virtual machines. I should not be able to see those buckets because I should not be seeing it. My task is only to work on database. So that's your principle of least privilege. So what you want, what you're supposed to work, you should get access only to that, nothing to anything else. So if you were to give something of that sort, this will not even work because it's very broad. So that's where when Google started in 2008, they started with primitive roles. Then they realized that this is not going to work because it's very broad. So that's where they came up with a very good option called as predefined roles. So in this predefined roles, it's very narrow, meaning the same example. If you're DBA, you need to work on database. Uh, you'll just need to give access to the database, uh, something like Cloud SQL admin. That's it. If you are having that role, you cannot see virtual machines, you cannot see storage buckets. Very fine grain access. So which is going to implement the principle of least privilege here. And you have hundreds of such roles, predefined roles. And this is the most important thing. This is the most important thing. The reason is this follows the principle of least privileged by default. So a very, very easy and handy option. And in some scenarios, you are really comfortable with a predefined role, but everything is good, but one or two stuffs is not okay with you. For example, you may have a role called as compute instance admin. So this, by looking at the name itself, we can have a guess that this is related to virtual machine to create an instance. I'm the admin. I can create an instance is what it indicates. We know if you can create an instance, you can also delete it by default. So if you want exactly like compute instance admin role, but you don't want the user to delete a VM without permission to delete the instance. If you want this kind of a slight customization, then you go with custom rules. So custom roles. Now, one important thing to note here is custom roles are something like on resource only. Yeah, so this is going to be only on resource. So only on these resources. This is on a resource. This is on project, on the complete project, because inside the project only you're going to create resources. So one is at a project level, the two more roles are at a resource level. So Aman, so it's at a resource level. So always prefer to use, wherever it is possible, prefer to use this one. The reason is, whenever you come to cloud, right, your focus should be always doing like bringing some business insights out of it, uh, fulfilling what the business requires. You should not be spending more time on installing something, very basic stuffs, managing something which you are not supposed to do all those things. So the reason is, these roles are going to be managed by Google. It's going to be managed by GCP for you, meaning tomorrow a new stuff comes up, a new permission. So maybe the next slide will make it very clear. A new thing gets updated, your predefined roles gets it will keep on getting updated. But when it comes to custom role, they are managed by you in the sense your organization. So whenever you create any design document, as a cloud architect, you are also supposed to create a architecture, the design document, how the flow goes, all those things, and also sometimes how long it takes to implement all those things. So in that design document, you need to mention, when you use custom role, you have to have some operations involved, meaning keep on checking whether it is up to date or not. Is there any new related permissions which comes, which you need to add? So you need to do it. So whenever in the exam, right, you get a question which can be fulfilled by this one and by this one, both can fulfill that requirement, then I would prefer to go with predefined roles. The reason is, it is managed. Whenever it comes to GCP, that too in the cloud architect exam, prefer to use as much as possible managed services. That is a key part here. Prefer to use predefined roles compared to anything else. In some scenario, if the predefined role does not fulfill it, then you have no other option to fall back to this. But please indicate it is going to have some extra operations work. So majorly three roles, and most of the time we are going to use predefined roles in our class. Now, when it comes to the roles, right, what are these roles comprised of? The roles are comprised of permissions. So how those permissions are going to be, the format of those permission is going to be something like this, like service name, resource type, dot verb. Anything, whether it's primitive role, predefined role, or custom role, all the roles are going to comprise of permissions. So storage dot buckets dot create, meaning if I have this permission, then I can create a bucket. If I have this one, compute dot disk dot list, I can list all the disks attached to a virtual machine. So this is what is going to be comprised of any role, primitive, predefined, custom. All roles are going to be comprised of permissions. Now, one important thing to note here is, you cannot use this permission to an identity. To an identity, it is not possible. You cannot directly assign a permission to an identity. But what you can assign is a role. You can assign this to a role. So give a try. You'll not be able to do it. And we will do that n number of times throughout our class. And I'll show you that when we do the demonstration. So you cannot assign a permission to an identity, but you can assign a role to an identity. So meaning, when you're talking to the customer, right, a small tip, uh, you should never ask, give me permission to create virtual machine. If you say that, you are using a wrong terminology, and people on the other side may think your exposure on GCP is very limited, because I cannot give you permission, folks. Maybe it's you're trying to use it in a very vague term saying permission, but if you are trying to show off that you know GCP very well, you should always use the term something like, give me the specific IAM role, access to this IAM role. This is going to be the best way of communicating. So, or you can, if you want to avoid all this jargons, you can say, give me access to create virtual machine. But if you want to go one step ahead and show off that you really possess that, you have that skill set, I usually do this. So give me access to compute instance admin, comma, Google Cloud storage admin, and BigQuery viewer. So this is how I do it. So now if I showcase this kind of a stuff, I've seen that in my real projects. When we showcase this, people believe, yes, even though you are certified, they get that comfort. Yes, the project is in a safe hands of a certified person. But when you showcase this kind of stuff, right, they really understand, yes, this person has the capability to do it. So whenever you do something like this, give access, ask for any access, don't use the term permission, please, because you cannot give a individual permission to a role, to an identity. So if you want to give this permission, only this permission, nothing else, create a custom role out of this permission and give access to the person for this role. It has to be a role and an identity is what can be binded, not a permission and an identity. Hope it is very clear, folks. Is it possible to list the permissions under the role through command line? Yes, Aman, it is possible. We are going to show that demonstration itself. And please remember, folks, everything in GCP can be done with those three options which we discussed: console, command line, REST APIs, and client libraries. All the four options are always possible. And wherever it is possible, I'm going to highlight some few things which is not possible in console, some few things which is not possible in command line. Basically, I would say 99% most of them are possible. One or two features are not possible in command line, one or two features are not possible in a console. I would say console is going to have less features. And how basically it works when it comes to Google, right? If there's a new product coming up, a new feature, first it's going to have REST API. That's how the engineers, Google engineers are going to work. Once the REST is there, then they will create a CLI version of it. Then only they will going to create the GUI version. So sometimes you may not have a GUI itself, but REST will always be there. Command line will be there. This is going to be questionable depending on the requirement. So command line is always there. One or two options are not there. I have seen it. So which we'll discuss as we come to that specific topic. All right. Okay, there's some good questions. So if it's slightly out of topic, I'm going to wait for that. So there's one question: predefined role or custom roles, which should be the best practice to use? Because I see the environment only uses predefined roles. Not sure what's the reason they are not using custom roles. What is that environment when you mean, Vijay? The one which you are currently having, your GCP console. So if that is the stuff, by default, you will not have any custom roles. You have to create it because you are going to manage it. You have to create it. So, and when you create a new project, you will always have predefined roles and primitive roles only. You will not have custom roles. We will create it based on our requirement. So that's the reason why you don't see any custom roles. If I create a custom role like compute admin and add two people in there, so we would be giving permission to compute admin rather than the people, in my understanding is correct. Okay, so what you basically do is there's an identity. This could be a group or an individual. There is a role like compute admin. So both has to be binded. Once you bind it, you get something called as IAM policy. So that's what you are going to basically do, Kumar. So you are creating a policy so that this identity can access the virtual machine, create a virtual machine, delete a virtual machine. So this is what you are doing basically here. So you are creating an IAM binding or a policy. So binding between your identity and your role. Once you bind it, the output of that is nothing but your IAM policy. All right. Hope that answers your question. Now let's quickly, yep.
Yeah, Mahesh, actually, my question was in our environment, all the clouds they are using only a predefined role only, but they are not creating any custom role. So
When you
that's what
mean
I
in
asked.
your environment, it is in your organization's environment or in GCP's
Yeah,
free
organization.
console?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, yeah,
so
organization.
as I mentioned, right, predefined roles are going to be managed by Google. Custom roles, you need to manage it.
Oh,
So
that.
they did not, maybe they don't want to do that overhead of managing those things. I'll show you that demonstration once I show it. I mentioned it. So avoid using custom roles because you have to manage it. So if it's
Oh,
predefined, Google is going to manage it for you. That's the key reason.
because all cloud there is
All,
following the. Yeah, that's
yeah, yeah.
okay.
So now let's quickly go through primitive roles, predefined roles, and custom roles. Then we'll get into a demonstration. So when it is primitive role, right, very broad. Let's go from the bottom actually. Owner. The owner can do everything. So this is the super user at a project level, folks. Super user at a project node is owner. So this user can create projects, delete projects, create users, sorry, give access to users to a specific resource, then enable billing, disable billing, all those kinds of stuffs you can, this user can do it basically. A superset is what I would call it. Basically, this there was a small network glitch, folks. The owner can do everything in a project, give access, managing users, groups, managing a resource, everything this user can do. Sorry, the user with this role can do it. Then the role editor can do almost the same as the owner, except cannot add or remove users, cannot create projects, except that inside a project, provisioning a resource, deleting a resource, all those things can be easily done by editor. Uh, Lesser role. So it's like a president and a vice president kind of a stuff if you were to do it. A small analogy. The last one is viewer. They can only view the stuffs, but they cannot do any changes. They can see every details, but they cannot see, edit anything, delete anything. It's only view only access, read only access. So this kind of a role you should give mostly to security team where they want to review, is there any loopholes or anything. So for security team to look for when they are doing penetration testing or just checking the stability of the system, they want to do a review. For security review, give them viewer access, or you can give this viewer access to your manager who's not going to do any implementation, at least for their reference sake. They want to know what is going on, so you can give it to your senior management people, the viewer role basically. So this is your primitive role, and this is all at a project level. The next role which we are going to see is predefined role, and I have put a very much an asterisk here because it's not an exhaustive list. So I have tried to put something very important at a very high level, and we will see that in a demonstration how many such roles you have. So if it is something like virtual machine related stuff, I have few predefined roles like compute admin, instance admin, compute viewer. And what is the difference between compute admin and compute instance admin? We'll look into it at a later point. So compute admin is the super role at a compute engine level. So if you want to get the super user access for only for a virtual machine, give that user compute admin. Similarly for storage admin. And if it's something on network, you're going to have something like compute network admin. So you're going to have admins for every resources. If it's Kubernetes, you're going to have admin. So the names are going to be real easy to understand. So it's going to be either admin, viewer, editor kind of stuff. But what is this? For that resource, you are an editor only for that resource, not for the entire project. So, and this is not an exhaustive list. I have tried to show some important roles only, which we are going to do mostly is, at least in the beginning of our class, compute, storage is what we are going to focus in the beginning. Slowly, when we come to big data class, we are going to explore this part. When we come to networking, we are going to explore this. And when we are looking into App Engine and Kubernetes, we will look into this part. For now, we are going to focus on compute and storage rules. For now, this is your predefined rules. Now the last one is custom rule. When should you use it? We already know when you want to customize it. So the possible use cases are combine two roles, meaning you have two predefined roles, compute admin, storage admin. So every time a new person joins the organization, this person should have compute admin also, storage admin also. Now assume I am little lazy, I don't want to give two roles every time. To make my life simple, I'm going to combine it. Combining simply just a combine between two predefined roles. I can go for custom roles. The second option is remove a specific permission, meaning in compute admin, everything should be there. Compute admin is a role, and if you open up that role, you'll have n number of permissions, close to around 600 permissions. I'll show you that in the demonstration. So you'll have 600 permissions, and out of that, only one permission I have to remove it. Basically, the user should not be able to delete a instance. Compute instance delete permission should be removed. So if I were to do that, then it's a good fit. And if you were to add one more permission, that's also going to be a good fit. So these are all possible choices. Now, based on what you have seen, what is recommended for custom role, out of these three options, what is the best option you can prefer to use, the best scenario when you should use custom roles? Combining, removing a permission, adding a permission. Which specific scenario is the best fit for custom roles, folks? Which is the best fit? Combine, remove, or add? CRA. You can just use your short form. Which is a scenario where it is really a best. No other option is possible. Only custom role is possible. Which is the best option which you can go for? In which scenario? Which scenario, folks? Hope I'm audible. Remove is what Shripal mentions.
So basically, list privilege. Even in the combine two, we can just give the add and drop the remove, right?
Okay. You can do the least privilege. When you do it, you have to combine those stuffs, which is basically when you combine it, right, you are combining an existing predefined roles and combining it. So that predefined roles which you're combining is basically should be a least privilege, something like compute admin viewer. If you then do it, then it's going to be a good choice, I would say. But if you ask me, right, the best fit, I will never ever use combining those two roles for custom roles. Removing a permission, I recommend using custom role. Adding a permission, I recommend it. But when you're just simply, because of some laziness, you are just combining it, that's not a good fit. The reason is, let me tell you, when you combine it, what's going to happen? Two predefined roles or three predefined roles, you're just combining it. Now, when you just combine it, it's a new role which you have created it. You need to manage it. You need to manage it there. If you don't manage it, the role may not be up to date. So that's the reason when it is just mere combining two existing predefined roles, always don't use custom roles. Rather than that, add it. Multiple times you can add compute admin, storage admin, BigQuery data admin. You can keep adding n, but just for the sake of combining it, don't use custom roles. If it is only removing a specific permission, adding a specific permission, I would recommend to use this thing, because I'll show you a small demonstration where you will see the real value of custom roles. What is going to happen if you have created a custom role and Google updates it? You'll not have those updated permissions there. So I also have a video where I have talked about that on custom roles, a specific use case, when you should use custom role, when you should not use it. We will see that in our class itself. If you want to directly look into it, you can also look into this. So if I search for custom role, like as cloud architect, how should you think when you're using custom? Take a look into it at a later point of time, folks. So these are your predefined, primitive, and custom roles. And when to use what, we will explore more by doing a live demonstration itself. Now it's time to think. Now this is what we are going to implement in the next 1.5 hours. So Mahesh is a newly joined engineer in our organization. The email ID is this one. Maybe I can use a different email ID at a later point of time. A email ID, basically an identity. His role is to create, start, stop, login to VMs. Cannot delete VMs. Another role this person is going to have is create objects in bucket. Cannot sorry, it's create, my bad. Cannot create, delete buckets and delete objects. These are the stuffs this user should be able to do. Now let's try to implement this and fulfill this requirement, and see, by doing this entire activity we are going to learn the entire stuffs. What is a primitive role, what is a predefined role for such a kind of a requirement, whether custom role is going to be a good fit or a predefined role is going to be a good fit, is what we are going to do. So this is our mini case study, and let's see how we can implement it. All right, so we'll stop it here, take a 10 minutes break. Once we come back from the break, we are going to implement this requirement. Okay, so by doing this we'll learn the concept thoroughly. So take a break, let me stop the recording first.
Mahesh.
This conference will now be recorded.
All right, before the break we understood the various roles, what is an identity, all those things, how to create an identity, in which place to create it. We have got an idea. Now what we'll do is we'll use the email ID will be a different one. So this email ID is having some issue at my site, so I'm going to use a different email ID, just an identity. That's not going to make a big difference. This is what we are going to try to implement. Okay, so let's first explore the various roles slowly, understand the various roles, what are the permissions it is comprised of, then we'll go into an implementation of this requirement. Okay, so first of all, anything on IAM, the best place to explore is always your IAM and admin, and the best important thing is roles. So click on roles. Let's explore those roles which we were looking in the slides. So let me also launch my Cloud Shell. So if I scroll down to the bottom, right, scroll down to the bottom, there are almost like 721 roles available. Roles, folks, roles are available. So few are for specific resources, few are at a project level, all those things. The first important role which we want to understand is basically the owner. So you can just do a search here, role/owner, role/owner. You can also search as owner, but it's going to give you lots of other stuff. So to avoid any confusion, I usually search like owner slash role/owner, and I'm going to get this. And this flag is where, or this column is very important. Used in where? What is the level at which this role is used? This is used at a project level. So we saw, right, primitive roles are always at a project level. This column gives you that indication. Now we know roles are comprised of what? Permissions. Now can I see those permissions? Definitely it is possible. If you just click on this owner details, you are going to see the complete permission. It's going to be around 3,600 or so. So let's just wait. Okay, 3,755 permissions. So these are the permissions it is comprised of, and every permission is going to be of this form: access approval dot, basically the service dot resource dot verb is the action. So for example, if I just search for, we don't know what is access approval for now, but we know what is compute. So compute dot, if I do this compute, so these are all compute related services. If I do similarly, there are almost like 553 such permissions. Storage dot buckets. Okay, so something on storage, these are the permissions, storage dot buckets dot create. So similarly, you will have n number of such permissions. So it's totally comprised of 3755, and this permission, right? You keep a note, make a note somewhere, and maybe a month later or something, if you come and see, the number of permissions would be increased automatically, because they keep adding new resources. For new resources, they should get access. So this permission is going to be kept on adding. Now, how do I see the same thing in command line? Simple. So just copy this name, go to your Cloud Shell. So G Cloud, if you want, you can use this beta till you get comfortable. Sorry, where it's going to show you that auto suggestion option. Want to leverage it, you can definitely. So how do I see the same thing in command line is what I wanted to show. 3755 permissions. So if I do something like G Cloud, what I'm trying to learn today, IAM. So if I type IAM, and what is the specific stuff which I am exploring? Roles. Just type roles, and what I want to do is I want to know the permissions in a specific role, which is owner. So I wanted to do a describe. So shows all the permissions there. So describe and mention the role ID. This is my role ID. So if I hit it, it's going to show a very big list. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a small Linux command here, less, so that I can do the space bar, hit on space bar, and it's going to go, give me some kind of a way to look very nicely all the options. So hit enter, and you can do a comparison yourself. The first permission is access approval dot request dot approve. That is the same thing which you see it here also. Now, because we use that less attribute or the command, so you can just type, press spacebar. It's going to easily go. It's more like a pagination which you are going to do. And if you type Q, you're going to come out of it. If you want to see the full list, you can just hit it. It's going to show a very big list, 3,755. All those things. The last row is something on workflows dot update. So that's the last permission which you have, and you can also see the last permission here. So if I just scroll down to the bottom, you should see that. So this is your first role. That too, it is a predefined, primitive role, very broad. Now why don't we look into the editor role? So now if I go to roles, so if I go to roles/editor, definitely we should expect the number of permissions to be lesser than our owner, because owner can do much more than an editor. Definitely it should be less than 3,755. Let's just verify it and get our understanding correct. Our understanding is correct. Roughly around 300 permissions odd is less, because this role cannot add users, delete users, add project, delete project, all those things, enable billing, all those things cannot be done. So definitely makes sense. Let's explore. And if you want to do the same thing, it's the same thing. Just change your ID here in the describe command. You're all good. You should be able to see the same thing. It's always role / what is your role name. That way you will be able to get the complete details. And it also says the stage is generally available. We'll talk about that in the next few minutes. What is generally available? Are there any other stages available? We'll look into it. Beta, alpha are there. So we'll look into that. One last role in predefined, primitive is our viewer. Roles / viewer. Because it's only view only, right? It's going to be very less, roughly around some 1,000 permissions. And one important thing is, because it is viewer only, most of your permissions are going to have this action, the verb dot get dot list. Most of them are going to be like this, read only. But if you see the other roles which we saw, it could be dot create, dot delete. So here in viewer, it's going to be most of them are going to be dot get dot list only view only acts. So this is how you can see your predefined roles. And if I just go back, everywhere that in use column is going to be really handy. So if I put roles viewer, it's going to show it is going to be used in project. Now, why don't we explore a couple of important roles which we are going to use for this implementation, which is compute admin. So compute, if I just type compute, it's going to show me a role called as compute admin. Now you see the change in the column, folks. This is only applied at a virtual machine, for a virtual machine or at a virtual machine level. Simple. It's not at a project level. So this is very clear indication it's a predefined role. Now all the roles in GCP are going to have this hexagon symbol. Any role if you see, it's going to be basically an hexagon symbol only. You're going to see a different symbol when we create a custom role. So if I put compute admin, now if I click on this, definitely it should be much lesser than the viewer role, because viewer can see every resource. If it's a compute related role, it should be only related to compute, meaning all the permissions are going to be based on compute related stuff only. So 543 permissions is what you get. You can create, delete, all those things. So this is a very specific role for virtual machine, to do anything with virtual machine. And this is the super role for virtual machine. So where it can do everything related to a virtual machine, right from creating a network, creating a firewall rule, all those things. That's the reason it is comprised of this many permissions. But if I go to a lesser role in compute itself, called as compute instance admin, there are one is beta, one is in version 1. Let me use the version 1. Here this is only to create virtual machine, not a network, not a firewall rule. So it's going to be half of it, only to the virtual machine instance, related to the instance only, not to the network. So this is your predefined role. Now let's explore one last role which we are going to use, because the task is basically towards virtual machine and storage, and those are the only two products which we know till this time. So we wanted to leverage that only. So anything we explored something on the VM part, compute admin, compute instance role. These are some good roles which we got. Now let's explore the storage role. So storage admin. Storage admin, if I click on it, for your surprise, it's going to be something like 17 or 20 permissions only. That's it. 17 permissions. Firebase, to be very frank, at this time, I don't know what is Firebase. People have used it, may know it, but for now, it's not important for us. Just ignore that. Then you have few resource manager, basically to get the project details, list the project, and all other stuffs are storage. If you see it, storage.buckets.create, storage.buckets.delete, get the bucket details. Similarly, objects.create, I can create an object, I can delete an object, I can change the IAM policy set the IAM policy. Everything I can do. Basically, this is your super role for storage admin. Now we got an idea how the roles looks like, how inside the role the permissions are comprised of. Basically, roles are comprised of permissions. So what is the role we have to give is what we are going to explore now. And there's going to be a surprise towards the end for you people. So what we will do is we'll try to give access. We'll try to give access to that user to see what is going to happen. And there are two owners already and a couple of service accounts. So if you just come to your IAM, this is where you can see the members currently. And I usually use this filter type users. There are two users, both are owners. Because my project is coming, my subscription is coming to an end, so I wanted to use two different owners so that I don't get that pop-up, your project is getting expired. So that's the reason I'm using this user, this user currently. And there is two service accounts currently used. Now what we'll do is we'll try to add this Mahesh user and give him an access. We know what a owner can do. What a owner can do, can add user. So let me give this user to start with, because this is the first time we are doing it. So I'm going to use this user, folks. GCP. This is the user. And I'm going to give this user a role. We are doing a role. We have an identity. We have a role. We are creating a binding and we are creating an IAM policy. So what is the role I can give? To start with, right? Let me use the very basic one, editor. And you will ask, what is a browser? I'm going to answer you, what is this? So why it is not mandatory? What is the question? I did not understand why it is not mandatory. What is the question, Kumar? So basic role, and I'm going to give editor role. Why the role is not showing as a mandatory? If I click on save, right, it's going to show at least you have to have a mandatory thing. It's going to show you that. Only the interface they have not highlighted in some star or red color that it is mandatory, but you cannot add a user without a role. Okay. The difference between service accounts. So hold on to that, Vijay. So we'll first finish our IAM stuffs first with the identities which we know. Then we'll come to those service account. So you have to have a role. Without a role, I cannot add anybody. So it is mandatory, but it is not shown very effectively in the user interface. So I'm going to use a basic, and I'm not going to give this user owner. We know what a owner can do. So let's start with editor role. Let's give an editor role. And if I click this, I'm going to get an email. But this user is cloud identity user. So I cannot send him a mail because this user does not have a mailbox. So what is this condition? We'll talk about it later. Now starting with, let's give the user the role, editor role, one level down the owner, and click on save. Now let's explore what this user can do. It is done. Now, when you create, I would suggest you can also do this demo yourself. And please note, the user which you're going to add does not need to have a GCP account. It's only a Gmail ID is what is required, folks. Don't activate one more free tier account, another Gmail ID. So it should not be a big deal for you to create one more Gmail ID. Or if you want to use a Yahoo account, use it, no problem. So I need one more email ID, that's it, which is a Google identity. So just go give it and you should be able to use the same project in that account also. So I have given the access. Now I'm going to swap my screen to my Edge browser. So my Edge browser basically I have logged in as this user. So if I just go to my project I have to click on no organization because this project is belonging to a no organization. It already shows my batch 6. So let me click on this batch 6. Now it shows me the stuff here, batch 6. Then if I click on my hamburger menu, because I'm the editor, if I go to my IAM role, first, what you will be able to see is the roles which you saw in your owner screen also. The same thing is what you are going to see. And you will also see, let me just show what is the account I have logged in as. This is the account. This is which only we gave editor role. The same thing you see it here, right? Now, can this editor add user? That is what we learned. The editor cannot add user. Can we just get it verified whether it is totally correct? Just mouse or on this add button. You see, you need permission to do this action. So it is now very clear. I cannot go ahead and create or add or give access to a user. Basically, this is not possible. So that's very clear. Now, can I go and create a virtual machine? Let's give a try. Create a virtual machine. And this is going to be a long demo, folks. So it's learning by doing mistakes is what we are seeing. So this is the first time we are learning our IAM concept, and at the same time we are also trying to implement something. So we'll do mistakes. So and we'll try to come up from learn from our mistakes. So create a VM. The only drawback of doing live demos is the screen loading. So sometimes it's going to take time. So I'm just going to leave everything as default, and only I'll just make it as region as Singapore. So that should be good enough. So that it's going to be a little fast for me. I'm just going to click on create. So what was the requirement? User should be able to create a VM, start a VM, stop a VM. Login is basically SSH. I should be able to SSH into it, but I should not be able to delete it. That is what I had mentioned. Let's see whether we have fulfilled that requirement or not. So let's wait for the VM to come up. Yes, the VM is provisioned. Now the SSH button is enabled for me. Now let me click on it, see whether I can log in basically. And it was assumed it was Linux. Windows, we will do it at a later point. Windows is going to take longer time to process and all. So Linux is going to be super fast. Let's verify whether I can SSH completely. I have to see that black terminal, the terminal there, things are working fine. Then only I'll believe my SSH is working. So I have the right access to log in. And in the GCP, so it's going to use the browser-based login only. So the keys are going to be transferred. The private key is going to be transferred. Private and the public key is going to be generated and transferred. Then only I can log in. So I see it. So I can see my I can see my OS details, all those things. So meaning perfect. So I'm able to fulfill this requirement. Now, a small disclaimer or a small point to add, this user is little hacky. So this user, apart from what you say, he tries to do something extra. And he is more in an exploratory mode, more hacky kind of a user. Just keep this in mind. So that he can do something different, something which is not supposed to be done also he can do it. So I was able to create it, I was able to log in. Let me just try to stop it. Stop the VM. And this first part of the demo, let's do it slowly so that we'll understand it completely, what's happening. And VM stopping, just for your information, takes around 90 seconds. The VM provisioning in GCP takes less than 30 seconds. An interesting fact, actually. It takes longer time to shut down, basically. It is quick to come up. Yes, I can stop it. Can I start it? Let's verify whether he's able to do it. Yes. So meaning all the points which you told me, the first sentence, I have fulfilled it. The second sentence or the second requirement is cannot delete it. Let's just verify. So click on this. This delete button should not have been there, or it should have been disabled. But sometimes it could be UI bug also. The button shows, but when you click on it, it will show permission denied. Let's just verify it. Click on delete the instance. If it gets deleted, then I would say we have not done a good job. So we have given him more broad access. And I also told this user is little hacky, more exploratory, can do all those kinds of unwanted things which can really trouble the organization. So looks like it is possible to delete. Yes. So meaning the second requirement, we have not fulfilled it. So it's okay. So we'll make a note of it. Let's go to our storage and see whether he is not allowed to create a bucket. Let's just verify it. Storage. If I go to storage, I should see a screen where the create button or create storage bucket should be disabled if this role is good enough for us. And we have not done a great analysis, but we are trying to learn by doing this entire process. So maybe we would have done some mistake. Let's verify it. The create button is enabled. Maybe a bug. Let's verify it in the UI, whether the bucket can be created or not. For simplicity reason, folks, not highly recommended, but for simplicity reason for me to quickly do this, I'm going to create my bucket name as my project ID quickly. That's it. Let me see whether I can create it. So I can create it. Can I upload it? Can I upload any object? I can upload it. Then can I delete it? I can upload the object. I can delete the object. And not only that, let me just show you what I can do further. Done. Bucket deleted. Sorry, object deleted. Let me see whether I can delete the bucket also. Delete the bucket. Bucket also deleted. Now, the key indication is we have not even fulfilled the last requirement. He should not create a bucket itself. So please avoid this typo. It is create, cannot create, delete the objects. Everything this user is able to do apart from uploading the objects or creating the objects. So meaning with an editor role, this is like an broader access is what you are given. So he can fulfill this every requirement, but he can do much more than that, which is very broad, which is not a recommended one. We have not used the principle of least privilege here. And it's not only this, as I mentioned, this user is little hacky. He can go and do something else also. What is that? He can go explore not only storage and virtual machines, he can go explore some other resources also. For example, SQL database. If I go to database screen, I can create an instance, but he's not supposed to look into any of the instances in this project, because his job is only with virtual machine and storage. Now this is a very clear indication it is no to editor, because it's very broad. Now you will definitely get to know that this user is little hacky and has explored lots of stuffs, and just wanted to share you one instance here. So there was one user who had got this access to Cloud SQL. This is a real use case, real scenario which happened. And this person, out of curiosity, created a Cloud SQL instance with the highest storage, something like 10 terabytes or 15 terabytes. And we got a huge bill because he was exploring and he did not know this is going to incur costs. He was in an exploratory mode. So it was close to a lakh or so, the bill. So we had to again then talk to Google to negotiate somehow, because we were a partner. So at that time, so do something so that we reduce that bill. So sometimes this kind of expensive resource, if they have not managed the resource properly, can happen here. So please be aware. Now, it's very clear we will not use editor role. Is there any doubt in this, folks? We got it by doing the demo itself. So totally no to editor for such kind of a requirement. Now, can I go with a viewer role, folks? What's your thoughts? I can do a demonstration, but just wanted to know your thoughts. Viewer role, if I go with a viewer role, what's going to happen? Meaning go back here, change this role which you are going to have, change it to viewer. So if I do this, let's see what's going to happen. So as Kumar and Vivek mentioned, so we should not be able to, he's not going to do anything. So now your whole intention was he should only fix these two things only. Now, if you make him viewer, what is going to happen is you are giving him the most least privilege, I would say. He will not be able to create projects, create VM itself, meaning you are hampering his work itself. Then definitely will escalate. I have not got the access. How can I work it? So that's what going to happen. So whenever you give access to somebody, right? This is a small tip. When you give access, sometimes in some organizations where you are the only person who knows GCP, there will be lots of responsibility for you. You need to help the team, give access, all those things. Sometimes you may be bearing this responsibility. So whenever you give access to somebody, right, uh, don't send them immediately a mail. Access is granted, go use it. Rather, have at least something like a 2 minutes or 3 minutes time, then respond back. So just for your information, I'm a person who likes to respond things quickly. So at least in my office email, so when I was working in organizations, I like to keep the number of mails as 0, 100 emails as 0. So that was the whole intention I was doing. So because indicating that I have responded to every email, I have finished the task. If I'm not finished the task, I'll keep it as 100 usually. So that's the same thing which I do even in my Gmail. So I was behind that. So, and in one of the organizations where I was working, I was doing this access management also. So when the developer asked, I need access to this, I used to do so quick and send them in next 1 minute itself. And they used to ping me back in chat saying that I don't have access. Then later I realized that the propagation of the roles takes little time. So it's going to take at least a minute or so to propagate. Now, the whole reason why I talk this much is so that the propagation has happened. The viewer is reflected to this user. Now, if I go back, it's highly recommended you refresh the screen. So if I refresh the screen, it's going to propagate that stuff. Viewer, I would have downgraded him to viewer, and let's see what is going to happen. But if we quickly do there and come switch here and see, then it's not going to show. It would not have even propagated. The roles would not have propagated properly. It's going to have a little delay there. That's the reality. Let's wait. Usually I recommend logging off and logging in. Sometimes I become little lazy not to log off and log in. So let's give a try. So I'm just logging, just refreshing the screen. So just refreshing the screen, and I can just go to my viewer role, sorry, IAM, and see whether the role is reflecting or not. So if I click on my IAM, role, and let me see what I can do. It is showing it as viewer, and I have logged in as Mahesh. So I have logged in as Mahesh. So let me see whether I can create a virtual machine. What do you think, folks? When I go to virtual machine, what would be the screen which you may be expecting? Similar to the previous screen or something else? What do you expect? Permission denied. No, I will not say permission denied. It is going to show the create button as disabled. I can view. There's a VM there. It should show everything, but when I mouse over on the create button, it will show you don't have permission to create a virtual machine. But if there's a VM already there, I should be able to see it. Yes. So I will not have. I have only read-only access. I can only create see the stuffs read-only. Similarly, if I go to my storage bucket, I should be able to see if there's any bucket, but the create button should be disabled. Create button should be disabled. Let me just see it. Wheel spinning. Okay. So the create button again disabled. This is what was expected actually for him. There would be a bucket into which he should be able to upload it. But create button itself is disabled here. So what I will do is back or switch back to my owner screen and just create a bucket quickly and see what is going to happen. So I'm just going to quickly create a bucket. And I'm going to use my same project ID, and please don't do this in the real implementation. Okay. So to quickly create a unique bucket, I'm just using this my project ID itself, but it's highly recommended when you do the real implementation, don't do it because project ID is very sensitive. So I'm just going to create a bucket. Just give the name, create a bucket. The bucket is created. There's no object. It's an empty bucket. Now, if I switch my screen to my Edge browser and do a refresh, I should see a bucket, which was created by my owner, basically. So I should be able to see it. But let's see whether he can upload something or not. I should be able to see it. Vijay will come to those points. The only thing is that you are a little jumping the guns well in advance. We'll come to that point, the inheritance, all those things. So we'll come to that point. So I have a bucket already here. Let me see whether I can see my, whether I can upload something. So if I see there's an option for upload, let's just see it, whether I can upload an object. I have some image. Let me just upload it. You see, sometimes it could be a bug in the UI. It shows upload button, but it shows me error. Basically, I don't have permission is what it indicates. It shows error. I did not upload it. The reason is because I have only viewer access. I don't have write access to anything. So I can see any resource. I can see even my Cloud SQL. If I go to Cloud SQL, I should be able to see it. But the problem is I will not be able to create anything. So you have downgraded me to read only, meaning which is totally impacting my work, day-to-day work itself. So you see it, I cannot create anything. So it's just a viewer access. So this is not going to work. Either give me too much access or you have not given me any access itself. So again, did not fulfill our requirement. Now we finished the two predefined roles. Owner, we know we cannot give it because it's very, very broad. Now let's go to our predefined role. So for compute engine, we'll try to give a compute admin role. For storage, we'll give a storage admin role to start with and see what can happen. Can we at least reduce some of the stuffs there? We'll see it. Then we'll see whether it can fulfill and proceed further from there. So for that, let me go to my IAM. I'm in the owner screen now, folks. So if I go to my IAM, change this user. Okay, change this user role from viewer role to a predefined role. So I can give n number of roles. So edit, change this role and start looking into the roles. And one small suggestion, uh, after having lunch, usually most of us will not be in will not have a mood to work. So instead of looking into some social media, so you can come to your GCP console and look into this various roles. By just looking at the roles, something will strike you. So you can start exploring this way. So this is going to be a small tip if you want to learn GCP. So what I want is storage, compute admin. So let me give the most highest role in compute admin, full control to all compute resources. Give this, that's the first role. I can give n number of roles. Compute admin, and I'll give storage admin. So storage should be cloud storage role. Two roles. Now we started with one role. Now we are giving slightly getting upgraded. We are giving two roles. Save it. Now we have given this user two of these roles. Now immediately if I swap my screen and refresh it, I'm in my Edge browser. Let's see what is going to happen. So I just gave the specific role. Let's see what is going to show us. All right. From the screen itself, right, I can easily tell I have not got the access full, the permission or the roles are not still reflecting. The reason is when I see it, right, it should already show permission denied like this. This is something related to APIs. I have only storage admin and compute admin, so not to all the APIs. It should show me permission denied here. It should show me basically I cannot see any billing information. It should show me that. So that's an indication the roles have not propagated properly. So let me refresh it one more time. So this is to show in reality the roles will not propagate quickly. So when you're giving somebody access, don't respond back quickly. So maybe have a small break and come back and then give them the access. So or they have to log off and log in, refresh the screen, then only it's going to show the stuff. Now you see the change, folks. App engine, you don't have permission. APIs, you don't have access. Billing, I will have access because I have some billing setting there. So ignore the billing part. The remaining part, you should see permission denied. App engine, I don't have access to. This is what it indicates. Now this is an indication the roles have propagated. Now let me see, can I see the IAM stuff? Previously I was able to see the IAM stuff. This is what is expected. So you are only supposed to work on virtual machines and storages. Why should you know? Why should you need to know the details of who is having what kind of roles? Perfect screen for this kind of a person who is little hacky. Good. Now let me go and see my virtual machine. I should definitely have a create button because I'm the compute admin. Let me see, with just the compute admin role, will I be able to fulfill my stuffs? So create. Just change the region to the closest one. Click on create. Now before I click on create, there was somewhere some orange screen. Okay. It is showing something. You don't have permission to view the service accounts in this project. It says with just the compute admin role, even though you are the super user or the role for compute, it is saying you don't have access to service account, but it still shows the service account. This is a bug in the UI. So there are lots of bugs in the UI. So this is one of the one where it shows, even though you don't have, but it shows this one. So let's ignore this warning and see what is going to happen. So let's ignore this warning. Click on create. If it throws some error, we'll fix it. I cannot create virtual machine, but this was one of the requirements. You should supposed to create a virtual machine. There's an error message. Let's look into it. So what does that it indicate is the user does not have access to the service account. This is your default service account which got created. If you have compute admin access, you don't have access to the service account. So it is saying user ask the project owner to grant you this role. Let me just copy this role. I really don't know what is this role. I'm just going to copy it as is, go back to my owner screen and look at the roles and search for that role. Something on service user service. This was a role, right? I just copy pasted it. And let's see what is this thing. So this is somewhat related to service account, and this is the role which matches service account user, which is comprised of some 3 or 5 permissions. One of the permission is called as service account dot act as. This is basically an impersonation access. So more on this impersonation when we explore in tomorrow's class, I will talk about it. So you have to impersonate, only then you will get access. So basically it is saying you should have this role, only then you can create a virtual machine with a specific service account. So let's go ahead and give this permission to that role, sorry, to that user. So edit. Now the real game is starting. So now if I go add it, so it's going to be under service, and never please search it, folks. If you search, you're narrowing down your exposure. So at least in the beginning, so always scroll, you will see something. What is this TPU? You'll like to explore those things. What is the storage? What is the talent solution? You will explore that. So to make that exploration, start scrolling basically. So if I just go to my service account, there is various roles. The one which we need is basically service account user. Run operations as a service account. So let me just give this. This was the error which was given. Save it. Save it. Done. So I have 3 roles given. Now swap my screen to my Edge browser. Give a try, retry. If you want to give a retry, it may work sometimes, it may not sometimes work, but let's give a try. Retry. Looks like the VM is created. It's not showing. Just refresh it. Let's check it. It shows virtual machine was created, but it was not reflecting. So that's the reason I'm refreshing it. So the VM is created. So let me just SSH, should work if I'm not wrong. And stopping, starting, I'm not going to do. You can take it as a small assignment to see with compute admin role and service account user role. Can I stop it or start it? Possible to do it, but I would leave it as a small assignment to you so that you can give a try whether that's going to work. But I'm just going to show you whether I can log in basically. There's one advanced option which you can use called as OS login. We'll talk about that at a later point of time. Because the class is not on virtual machines, the class is mostly on IAM. So I can log in. So I can create, I can log in, I can stop and start also. Stop and start I'm not going to show because it's going to take time, but we have seen it's going to work in editor role itself. Even for compute admin, it's going to work. You can give a try. But the last thing which I wanted to share is, can I delete it? This is something which should not work. Let's verify it. Whether it's going to throw me an error like you don't have access, or it's going to delete it. So looking at the stuff, it looks like I can delete it. So even now I have not fulfilled my requirement. It's going to delete is my understanding. So compared to editor role, somehow we have restricted him, but this last sentence or requirement we are not still fulfilled. Still deleting. Let's wait. Yes, it is deleted. So meaning I have not fulfilled the requirement. Still some percentage of requirement I have to fulfill it. Same thing is with my bucket. So if I go to my bucket, let's see whether I can create a bucket. So if I just go to my bucket, I should be able to see the create button. Let me create a bucket, which I'm not supposed to do with that role. It should not be possible to do actually. Let's see whether I can create a bucket. So click create. It looks like I can do it. I can do it. I can also upload an object. Let me just see. With the viewer role, I was not able to do it, but with the storage admin role, I'm able to do it. So again, for storage, again, we were not successful. So it did not work. We have given this user broader access. So if I just go to this, let me just see broader access. So broader access. There's one question. Is there any reason why we need to give service account access? I understand with compute admin, he should be able to create, he has not be able to create an instance. We don't have any other role in the compute admin. Okay. More on why the service account user access, Kumar. We'll talk about that in service account stuff. We are going to discuss that. At that time, you are going to understand there's a feature called as impersonation. So at that time, you'll get a better idea. I can create a virtual machine without service account user role also. But for to know that, we need to understand what is a service account basically. So we'll just put this on hold the question. Tomorrow you'll get it clarified. Okay. So, but you need both of these if you want to use a service account. So we have only know a service account is basically a email ID so far. We have not explored much on it. So if I start exploring it, we will slightly go out of this requirement. So we'll put on hold to that question. Tomorrow it should be clarified. Okay. So coming back, predefined role also did not help us. So now what's the last option which you are left over with, folks? And before coming to custom role, why this was possible here with these roles, right? Why we were not able to fulfill the stuff was basically, if I just go to my roles, if I go to my roles and search for compute, so click on admin, compute admin. If I search for so compute dot instances dot delete, it was because of this permission only I was able to delete it. So if I have removed this permission, right, then I would say he could have done everything except the delete. So this is where we get an idea, like or get an opportunity to explore more on custom roles. So there are 543 permissions. From this permission, let me create a role, a customized role. If I just click on this create role, what I will do is I'll remove that specific one permission. By doing that, the permission to delete the VM would be totally removed. So I'm creating something called as custom compute admin. So it goes to give you a name automatically. When it was created, that information is going to be there. And it was also going to have a stage, alpha, beta, generally available, disabled. So what the stages indicate is, looking at the stage, it's going to convey a message to the other members, whether should I use this role or not. Should I use this role or not? If it's generally available, it's an indication that everything has been tested. It is good to use this. If it's beta, better to use it in a non-production environment. If it's alpha, don't use it because it is still exploring. People are exploring with this custom role. So let's make it as generally available because we want to use it. Now, 543 permissions was there. When I make it as a custom role, around 23 permissions disappear automatically. The reason is certain permissions cannot be are not supported. There are certain permissions which cannot be supported. This is one, and cannot apply for project level custom roles. So certain stuffs gets removed because of that. There are certain restrictions when you create a custom role. Certain permissions cannot be used. So that's the reason we are left with 526 permissions. And out of this, I want to remove one more permission. What was that? Compute dot instance dot delete. So this is what I wanted to delete. So let me just uncheck this. When I uncheck it, it's going to become 525 permissions. Done. What I will do is create a custom role which is going to be of this, and I'm 100% sure with this role we should be able to fulfill it, create it. So click on create. Now for the first time we have created a custom role in our project, and it's going to show a different icon. So something like not an hexagon, something else, and it's going to be shown as custom. So Vijay was asking this question, right? So this is your custom role basically. So similarly, let's explore our storage admin, folks. Storage admin. If I look into storage admin, what was that which was creating a problem for us to, we should not have basically storage.buckets.create, storage.buckets.delete. Getting the bucket details is okay. Getting the IAM policy on the bucket is okay. Listing the bucket is okay. Setting the IAM policy is not okay. Updating bucket is not okay. Buckets, objects I can create, but I cannot delete the object. So if I start removing some of those permissions, definitely I can fulfill it. But before doing that, let's just explore, is there any better roles in storage itself? So that instead of always creating custom role, we can look for something better. So there is something called as object admin. Object admin. So what this object admin does is, you can create bucket objects, delete objects, but bucket wise you cannot do anything. So if you don't have bucket wise, what is going to happen is I cannot see my bucket details itself. But I don't want this user to delete the object which he only uploads it. We should not have that. Again, this role may be again an overkill. For this, maybe we can give a try with one more role called as, it's more exploring the roles, the various roles. Always don't jump into a custom role, but look for the various roles. Object creator. Object creator, meaning you can create only the object, nothing else. Let's verify the permissions. I can create only one. I have only one permission related to storage. Create an object. Would this look better, folks? Create instead of we creating something new ourselves. What do you think? Why don't we give a try with this? Why don't we give a try with this? Storage object creator. So click on edit. Click on edit. Go to custom role, the one which you just created. And instead of storage admin, I'm going to give a little lesser role. So storage, cloud storage, right? Cloud storage. I'm going to give object creator only. So if I just do this, let's see what's going to happen. Now we have one custom role, we have a service account user role, more on this in tomorrow's class, and we have a storage object creator. Now with this, what do you think, folks? Will we be able to achieve everything? What's your thoughts? What's your thoughts, folks? S, we should be able to do it. I get it. S from Kumar. Anybody else? Okay. So S is what we think. Let's just verify it. And unless we see it in the screen, I'm not going to believe it. So let's verify it. So the system is going to tell us whether we have done the right job or not. Let's check it out. I'm just refreshing the screen so that it's going to reflect those changes. The best option is to refresh. The best option is to log off and log in. So either one of them, you do it before checking it out. So I'm just refreshing it one more time just to be on the safer side. Is there a question, folks?
Yeah, Mahesh, meanwhile, but is there any reason then why we are using the custom roles? The reason is I thought you said initially custom roles, if you use the custom roles, it would be difficult to manage by companies
Correct.
itself.
Correct. We'll come to that. We'll come to that. I'll show you. So to this requirement, we have a custom role. I'll show you why you should avoid it. In some cases, it's unavoidable. So in this case, it became like an
Okay.
unavoidable. I'll show you that. What's going to happen if you use it.
Okay. So you you're just showing us the use case based on your use case. You are just
Correct.
showing us.
Correct. So these are our use case. We are learning it. So we'll then
Yeah.
come up with some recommendation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So let's check it out. So whether we can see our IAM. So nothing on IAM. That's perfect. Let me go to my virtual machine. That's been creating trouble from the beginning. So we are not able to block this user from deleting it. With a custom role, I feel we have done some good job is what I feel. But let's quickly try creating it. SSH should work. Only one permission is removed. We'll create it SSH and then we'll try to see whether the delete is going to be removed or not. So quickly create a virtual machine. Vijay says, I think it will take a higher permission. I don't understand what is higher permission.
I mean to say, if you give a owner permission on resource compute, and again you give the read only permission, it will take the owner permission, right?
No.
Yeah.
So what we have given is given him custom compute admin role service account where there is no owner here. There's no owner. So
No,
it's a
I'm just giving.
customized role which we
Yeah,
that
actually,
one is okay. That privilege, okay, that we'll talk later, Vijay. So you'll get to know that. So
okay.
inheritance is what you are talking. So that we'll
Yeah.
talk later. So
Okay.
we are trying to implement the requirement. By this, we are learning some stuffs basically. That's the thing. Keep that.
Okay.
So the VM is created. Let me just SSH. SSH should also work. By the time it, anyway, it's SSHing it. So let's wait for that. By the time this comes, right? Let me click on this and see what's going to happen. Now, for the first time, right, you see this button getting grayed out, folks. If I slightly zoom this off, you should see the button. Yeah, you see this button. What do you see here? You don't have permission to delete the instance. And what is the user I have logged in as? There's no trick done, a live demo. So this is the user. The delete button is grayed out. Even here, the delete button is grayed out. This is something is what we were expecting. And let me see whether SSH has done. Yes, I'm able to SSH. Definitely, I should be able to also stop it. Now, delete, I cannot delete it. This is what I wanted. So, it looks perfect. So in our case, we had to forcefully use a custom role because no other, and you can give a try. There are other roles like compute instance, admin role, all those things. They also will not have, they will also provide you the option to delete it. So deleting only one permission, I had to remove it. So that's the only reason I had to go with custom roles. Now for the storage part, we are still using predefined role. Let's see what will happen. So, and I cannot delete it. So I have to leave it like this. Let me go, or maybe I can stop so that I'll not incur cost. Only the storage cost is going to be there. The compute option is going to be, the compute stuff is going to come to 0. Let me just see it, whether I can stop it. Okay, it is stopped. So starting definitely is going to work. So I'm not going to show you that. Now let's go and see whether our storage is going to, whether we will be able to do something with our storage. Browser. You'll have a surprise when you see it. What's happening, folks? So I gave the user storage object creator role. Now I'm getting a permission, sufficient permission, insufficient permission. Basically, it is saying you don't have this permission. Why this is required, folks? Now we can understand the permission from this pattern. What it is trying to convey here. Do I have the necessary permission? First of all, what's this error all about? Talking. Thoughts? Any thoughts, folks? Storage.buckets.list. What is this permission going to do basically? It's going to list me all my buckets. Now, only if I know the bucket, I can upload it. And assume this user is going to do something via UI itself. Only if I know the bucket, then only I can do it. If I don't know the bucket details, I cannot even click on it and do it. So what you can do basically is, you can still give him the same role, but you can do a small trick. The trick is, go to the project where there's that bucket is created, right? Because you have given him a creator role, object creator role. What you can do is, basically you can go to your storage. What is the bucket he should have access to, which bucket he should have access to? You can do something like this. Let me just show you a small trick. If you were to do it in the UI, there's already a bucket which we have created. I'll go inside the bucket, copy the URL, share it with him. So, and if you feel sharing the bucket is not sharing the link is not something good approach, I will show you another approach also. This is a easy fix. I'll click on the bucket and I'll show you what is the URL which is having this. So if I just open this, this is my URL. There's no sensitive information except my project ID, and I'm also mentioning my bucket name here itself. Now, if I use this, go to my Edge browser, put a tab, search for, or go to that URL, then I will directly have access to my bucket. I should be able to also upload. Let's just, okay. You see this? I am able to see that bucket, the project, everything. But it says, sorry, your server, the server was not able to fulfill your request. What was the request? Show what are the objects in this bucket. That I cannot do it because I'm just an object creator, meaning I can upload the object. Upload the object. It's going to get uploaded. So it's going to show this message. Ignore this and replace. There's nothing there. It's an empty bucket if I'm not wrong. But every time when you do it, it's going to show that warning message. It's a bug in the UI. So what it basically is doing, I'm able to upload it, but I cannot see it. Why I cannot see it, folks? Why I cannot see it? I'm just going to upload something like damaged. For everything, it's going to show this, even though the object is not there. So this is a bug in the UI. If I upload it, it's going to get uploaded, but I cannot see it. The reason is, folks, I don't have even object list permission. I cannot list all the objects in my bucket. So yes, forget about the bucket listing. Object listing also you have not given me. So for people like this is the best permission or the best access you can give, because these people are little hacky. So just give what we have done. I would is the best option. One is a custom role, the other one is a predefined role. But if you feel okay, it is becoming difficult for him to really manage it, you can slightly modify it. So if I just refresh this, I am in my owner screen. You see, these are the stuffs which that user uploaded. I can see it in a owner screen because I have the permission to do list of all the objects. But that user can only create it but cannot list the objects. So let's be little, let's give him little more permission, 1 or 2 permissions, then it's going to be easier. So what I'm going to do now is the one which really suits his requirement and makes his life simple. For that, I'm going to create one more custom role. What role I'm going to do is I'm going to create my own role which is going to fulfill his requirement. So for that, if I go to roles, storage admin, it was very specific requirement. So what I'm going to do is create a role, a custom role out of this. Let's make it as generally available. Even if it's alpha, you can use it. There's no problem. But best practices, it's been tested. It's an indication that we have tested it. So I really don't know what is Firebase, folks. I'm just going to remove it. Resource manager project get to get the details of the project. That's it. I don't want to create a bucket. I don't want to delete a bucket. Get the details of the bucket is fine. Getting the IAM of the IAM policy of the bucket is fine. Listing the bucket is fine, but I don't want to set any policy. I should not update a bucket. Then what else? I should be able to create an object, but should not delete it. Getting the object details is okay. IAM details is okay. Listing the objects is okay. Setting the policy is not okay. Updating the object is not okay. Now I am left with only 8 permissions. Out of 17, I have made it as an 8 permission. So these are removed. Now let me create it. A brand new custom role which we have created, which will definitely fulfill our requirement without much glitches. We have already fulfilled it with create object creator. But to make his life little simpler, we thought, okay, because he has to remember the URL always. So we thought, why don't we just give bucket details, listing of all the buckets, create the object, get the details of the objects which he uploads it. Now let me now swap, close this, refresh this in my Edge browser. I should have the buckets.list permission. So which was the error. So I would have fulfilled that. Let me see whether it's going to come up. So it's not still showing up. It's an indication it has not propagated properly. So I'm just going to do a refresh. Propagation sometimes takes longer time. This is the only drawback of the live demo, but we are going to learn lots of stuffs. So am I in which project? Am I in the right project? Yes. So it is showing me I don't have access to storage, which is weird. Let me just give a try. I should have. Did we give it or not? Or we did not give it. We created a role. Maybe we did not assign this role. My thing. Let me see it. We just created a role. Sorry, we just created a role. We did not assign it, right? So it is still the object creator only. Sorry, my bad. We did not create assign this. We have to assign this role. So let's go. Use this custom storage admin. Save it. Then it should be good. So if I see it properly, so these are 3 rows which should be good enough. If I just refresh this, now it should work basically. Let me just click on it one more time, folks. It should work. We have assigned it. We have given the right stuff. It should just come. It's just the propagation. Couple of times refreshing. It should work. Done. So just to verify, what's the user? The same user. I can see the buckets, but I cannot create a bucket. You see the permissions denied. Now if I go inside the bucket, I can see the objects which I uploaded. So the objects which I uploaded, I should be able to see it. Now that error which was showing the server cannot fulfill your requirement, that will not come because I can list it. Can I upload it? Let's verify it. Something like file.jpg is what I'm uploading it. That pop-up will not come. That's a bug in the UI actually. Now I see file.jpg. Now, can I delete it? Where's delete? Okay. Delete. Button is there, but just don't believe it whether button is enabled or not. Just give a try. It's not going to get deleted. You get an error message saying you don't have sufficient permission. You don't have storage dot objects dot delete permission. Now, what we wanted, we have achieved it completely with the help of a custom role. Just wanted to show you one more time. The delete will not happen because you don't have the right permission. So to fulfill this requirement, basically what I should have, custom compute admin role, custom storage admin role with service account user. If I do this, I'm all good. I should be easily able to fulfill this. Now I just wanted to give the same thing to you people. So to you people, so what I will do is I've already created the group which we created, batch 6. I have already added your Gmail, only your Gmail which to which you get where you receive your recordings, to that Gmail ID, right? I'm going to give you this access. So this group, what I'll do is custom. Please don't create a very powerful virtual machine, folks. So create a smaller one, storage, and service user role, service account user. That's it. Now, first time we are adding a group. If I put a filter, groups, you see this is the group. Now, the Gmail IDs which you gave, you will be having an idea of what is the Gmail ID you gave. I don't want to disclose it on the recording, so that's the reason I did not show this thing. You can just log in and you should be able to see batch 6, folks. I guess, Kumar, it should be either this one or the other one. I guess this is the one, if I'm not wrong, Kumar. So the one which you mentioned, that's the same email ID. Or try it with your another Gmail ID. You have shared 2. Maybe one of them should have it. You need to refresh it, folks. you have to refresh your screen. Only then you will see batch 6. You'll see batch 6 basically. Let me know whether you are able to see it or not. And if you are able to see it, you can also create a resource. You can go ahead and create your resource. When you create your objects, when you upload anything, right, please don't upload any sensitive information. Dummy data should be good enough, just for you to get a flavor how this entire stuff works behind the scene. So let me know whether you are able to create it, folks. In the bucket, you can upload some dummy text file, something like with your name hyphen dummy, something like that, test or something like that, just to see whether the access stuff, what we have done is real. In reality, what we have done is something which is going to work. Are you able to create it, folks? Anybody able to access my batch 6 project? You have to refresh it. Also, please use the best practice of clicking on Alt tab, not on something else. Only then you are going to see it. Anybody seeing it? It should be your Gmail ID. For confidentiality reason, I cannot put your Gmail ID on this thing because it's going to be recorded. That's the only reason. You know what is the Gmail ID which you are using? Nobody able to access it, folks? Yes, no, folks, you're able to hear me? Yeah, I have used my other Gmail ID and the email did not activate the console. No need to activate the console. So that's the reason I mentioned you don't need to have a GCP account. I just shared my project with you. What you need to have, Kumar, is just the email ID. So you already have your email ID. That's it. You can go ahead and create it. Let me see how many of you are creating a VM. But please be little cautious when you're creating it. A smaller VM. If you start creating too many, definitely we'll have quota, and we have more than 8 people. My quota is only 8. So who creates it first will get an opportunity to create a virtual machine. People who create it later will have a quota issue. But you can upload objects. Give a try. Getting a message. Deleting the object, you will not be able to delete the object, Mangesh, because we have mentioned the requirement is the object. Last, you can upload some dummy text files. So something like mangesh text file. It could be an empty file also. You have been added to, yes. Working as expected. Oh, okay, good. Nobody created a VM, folks. Good. You did not create it. You did not want to incur me a cost. That's good. Let me see the buckets. The bucket, anybody upload it? Okay, understood, Mangesh. Yeah, so it's working as expected. Now you see a real requirement where we spent an hour, where we understood the concept also, we implemented it also. So this is an important thing. So let me see, anybody created a VM, folks? I don't see it. It is little slow in the UI.
Mahesh, I just received the email notification that you have been added to the group, but there is no link of this.
No. You'll not have any. Link. What I've added is I've added you to the group. That's it. What I used is that from that group, I added that group ID, gave the group the access. Meaning you have to go to console.cloud.google.com. So console.cloud.google.com. If you go, then you will see batch 6 basically.
Okay, I have already 2 projects logged in.
No problem. You will see. No. You will see one more project. So if you have 2 or 3 projects already, it will be one more project along with them. That's it.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Mahesh, actually, I created my GCP account in different Gmail account. Now I just
Okay.
switch with this Gmail account which you shared it.
Yeah,
Basically, I'm
you are
able
able
to
to see it.
open. I'm able to open the console.cloud.com, but it doesn't list the project which you're showing up there.
1 minute. Let me just see it. Let me see whether anybody created a VM. First of all, I'll come to that 1 minute. So created an instance, not able to delete it. Beautiful, Mangesh. Let me just see, because the UI is little slower. I don't know, for some reason. I thought, let me use this thing. Oh, it is little slow. Okay,
Yesterday,
Mansur,
yeah.
you remember the email ID which you shared with me, right? Okay, I see people creating instances. You remember the email ID which you have created, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Which you shared with me. So
Mansur.nazar@gmail.com. Yes,
yeah,
yes.
so if you just go to your this thing, okay, when you open your console.cloud.com, maybe in a private browser, incognito
Okay,
mode, log in
okay,
as that, and you should be able to see this project.
okay. Let me try
This
that
project
also.
batch 6. Give a try. If you have too many Gmails in your browser, you may have some conflicts. You'll not be. For me, it is
Probably
not also
yes, yeah.
showing the project. Okay. Okay, Aman, I got it. You have created it. So let me list the this thing. What's the stuffs which you have uploaded? We can see it. The terminal is little slower. So a real use case where you want to use your command line. When it is slow, what I will do? I cannot do anything. So good. So some of the chats, some of you have uploaded it. So there's one chat information, somebody uploaded it. That's it. So, and you cannot even delete it. So Vijay, for me also it is not working. Okay. Vijay,
No,
you hope you remember. Sorry, Mansur, it's not working.
oh, got it, got it, got it.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay,
It is there.
Vijay, you remember the email ID which you shared with me, right? So if you go open that in a private browser, log into that email ID, then you should be able to see it, Vijay.
No, actually, it is showing up in the browser. My bad, Mahesh. I was looking at the recent projects. I clicked on all and I clicked the organization one.
See, so never
All
click
went to
on
see.
recent, always on all is what you should see. You got the
Yeah,
stuff right. So you have to always click on all. Don't click on recent, folks. So
now
I
I'm able to
see
see
good
it.
amount. Yeah, same idea I was using. Let me open up with, yeah, try it. So good. I'm going to delete the stuffs. I saw Vivek, Aman created the stuffs, and for confidentiality reasons, right? If I'm not going to show you that screen actually, but I can know which VM was created by which person. Which VM was created by which person by, if I go to my activity, if I just click on this, I don't want to click on it. If I click on it, who inside this group, the group will not show, but the person, individual person who created it, I can see it by clicking on
But
this activity. Okay, that's
Mahesh,
fine.
I'm able to create VM, but I'm not able to create this object under storage actually
You're
under the
not able to
bucket.
upload. You're not able to upload it.
Yeah, it's not showing me the option. Maybe I'm checking wrong.
Uh, okay. Are you able to see the bucket first of all?
No, when I click the storage, it's not showing me anything actually. Let me check once again.
Give a check. Is it working for you? So I'm just going to delete these stuffs. Okay. Then let me check whether I have really given you the access. Let me just stop sharing. Okay. Is that the one? So okay. I guess I would have given it. Okay. I see Mansur creating it. Good. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll take a 10 minutes break, folks. I'll take it. If you can send me a direct message, not to the everyone, I'll check the email which you are having. I got it from Vijay. So anybody else having the issue, let me know. I will. Okay, Mansoor is able to stop it also. Thanks, Mansoor, for stopping it. Okay.
I'm
He's
not able
not
to
able
delete
to
it. Yeah,
view.
it is visible.
Yeah, that's fine. So that means what we did, you are able to have that implementation. Kumar and Vijay is having issues. I'll just check that during the break time. You people can take a break, 10 minutes break. So, but I'll stop sharing the screen because I have to look into the details, why they are not seeing that. Then I'll share it back. So, yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Mahesh, in all of these, we are not going to create anything with the command line or with the API, right? We are using completely everything with the UI.
This use case which you're saying, Anil?
Yes.
You can. You just launch your Cloud Shell and do it. You are going to be able to do it.
Yeah.
You just created it using UI, so that's it. But you can just go and log in. You still have access. Just launch your Cloud Shell. Just use
That's
gcloud
fine.
command.
I'm just asking, right? Because API is the parent folder.
Yeah.
It is giving me a lot of issues. So let me
you
try.
should be able to do it. So you should be able to do it. So folks who have tried it in the UI, just do compute instance VM create. You just do this. You should be able to do it. Just mention the zone. You can also give a try. It's going to work. So use this command. It's going to work. But make sure you are in batch 6. Okay, Kumar. So you are able to see it. So Vijay is the only person who's not able to do it. I'll just check whether I have added his email ID or not. So mostly I would have missed it. So I'll check it out. So you can take a 10 minutes break. I'm just going to unshare my screen for 5 or 3 minutes to check whether I've added Vijay or not. Okay. So take a break and come back, folks.
This conference will now be recorded.
So which I checked during the break time. So the ID was proper. Just make sure, are you clicking on this all part? Only then when you click, you should be able to see it. Let me know if it's not still working. So I saw it was, the group was in the group, your email ID was correct. It was correctly. Now, if you still, okay, maybe it took time to propagate, I would say then. Okay, if you're able to see it, awesome. Now, we implemented this very well. We also tested it. Everybody tested it out. So it's not only me. So it was a live implementation, which we did. The whole thing of doing this was to understand the different roles, the pros and cons of everything. We learned it. Now, I was making a very important statement, right? Always prefer to use predefined. Now it is like politicians, right? They tell something like outside, and but when they come back to home, they do something totally opposite. So everybody does the same thing, right? Now I told don't use custom role, but to fulfill this requirement, we had to use custom role only. It was totally contradicting, right? But in this case, we had no other option to use custom roles. But wherever it is possible, right, avoid custom roles. Why we should avoid custom rule? Let me now explain it. So for that, I will go to a different project so that I'll show you something, because I had done something in a different project, something very similar. A custom role was created. Another project called as this one. This is the project ID. So if I just go to my IAM role, if I go to this IAM role, screen is, let me go to roles, because in this project also I have created some custom roles. So I've created certain custom roles I wanted to show, and these are created long back. So you see all this kind of icons are all custom roles. So there's one role which I've created something similar, a kind of similar demo which I did for some other batch. So it is called as custom compute admin. If I click on it, I'll come to know the details, when it was created, blah blah blah, all those details will be there. If you see it here, when was this created, folks? If I read it properly, it was on August 2020 is what it was created. Now, if I search for that permission, compute dot instances dot delete, you see the delete is not there. This is different. Delete access config. It is not there. So it was the exact demo which I did it for another batch also, and it was removed there. Now, the important thing is when it was at that time when I created this role, if I read this properly, this is August 7th of August. Okay, let me read what is the format, folks. So let me use the other project so that I don't read the time. I don't really remember the format. What is the format they are using there? Let's just see it in our project. So if I just go to our project, now here I wanted to, now this is a known bug which you see in the UI. Now if you see this UI, right, the project shows batch 6, but look at my project ID. It's something else. This is a known bug. So when you are using something more on GCP in the console, please make a note. You may have some bugs like this. So always focus on your URL so that you have a better idea. So it's not even refreshing it. So these are some known bugs. I can be very polished and saying GCP is all good, everything rocks. Yes, it rocks, but there are some known bugs. There's no software in the world or no service in the world which are without bugs. If there's no bug, everybody is going to use that only, right? That's the reality. So now if I go to my roles, just wanted to know the format, folks. I don't remember the date format. At least the one which we created was all today, so I can just read the format from there, and I'm going to put it so by the time that comes up, I'm going to switch back to my other project, the older project which I have, and I'll go to this similar kind of a demo which I did called as custom compute admin role, which was created. When it was created, let me just tell you, I need to get the time format. Okay, so 30th. Okay, so this is the day. So this is July 8th, 2020. When I created the similar demo, it was only having 451 permissions. Now today we did the same demo. When we did the custom role, same thing, it is going to be 525, meaning over a period of roughly around July to something like 6 months, 50 permissions, 50 plus permissions have been added. Now, if I just go back to predefined roles, Google is going to add this n number of times. They are going to keep on adding new roles, new permissions to an existing role. Something like your compute admin. Today, you can make a note somewhere if you have any paper and pen, or in the recording itself you can see. So today the compute admin role is having around 543 permissions, meaning they have added some few more capabilities. They have added it, and this role keeps on getting updated, fully managed by Google. But I created my own custom role. This is a custom role. Now if that new permission is added, it will not reflect it here. You have to manually go and add the permission. So this is what I meant. Custom role has to be managed by you. So if you want to get an official this thing also, you can go to your Google Cloud app, search for custom roles. You'll get to know once important information that custom role has to be managed by you. So they are going to make it very clear, or they are going to make it like predefined role has to be managed by you. So they are going to mention that very clearly. So custom roles, yeah. Custom role, understanding custom roles. If you just go to this documentation, they would have very clearly mentioned you have to manage it yourself. So if I search for that word, maintenance. So manage, I guess manage. There's one place they mention it where it's in a documentation. It's okay. Predefined roles. They mention it manage or maintain. What was that? Let me just get that, folks. So this is where I use my own videos for some reference sake. So this was the whole reason why in the beginning I created the video. So I don't remember things. So I just go refer something. I thought let me upload those to everybody. So let me just search for that. So I remember the article there. So it is custom roles. So if I just go to this video, there's a link which I had referred actually. So let's just wait. Let me just skip this ad. Okay, this is an understanding. So the word which I should use is user defined or not maintained. It's maintained only, right? So I should have got this maintained. Okay, this one official documentation. Custom roles are not maintained by Google. When new permissions, features, and services are added to Google Cloud, your custom role will not be updated automatically. Is this clear, folks? Just wanted to make this very, very clear. In some cases, you will definitely have to do it. I showed you the real use case where you have to go with custom roles. If you go with it, add a line item. Say there's some maintenance required. So maintenance required. If it's predefined, you don't need to do anything. So, and also usually you should not simply go and add a custom role. Look for a predefined role. And you can also have the details of what are the new roles added by looking into the release notes. So if you go to module 2, the bookmarks, which I have already uploaded in the Google Drive, you should be able to just get the change logs. How frequently a new role has been added. This is going to be done very, very frequently. Now, if you see this document, the last time it was updated was on 25th of January. So they keep adding new roles. Sometimes it's going to be a role update. For example, you see Apigee, there's a new role update. Then they have added some few more things. So compute engine, role updated. What was that added? So on 25th of January, they added these two permissions, which was not there. So now if I search this permission in the custom role which was created in last year, you will not have this. You will not have this. Let me just copy this. Go here. Is it there? What is this one? When was this added? 1 minute. Let me just check it. Has been added. The following permissions has been added to the role. Okay, this is compute engine network viewer. Network viewer. This was added. Have to look for something which is compute admin. Compute.admin. Okay, this one. So this is something newly added. Let me just search for this. And when was this added? I have to look into it. This was in, okay, let's just check this. Okay, you see this role, folks. So if I just search for this role, so this permission was updated when November, sorry, 11th of December. Now we created a custom role on in what it is July. So at that time it is not there. You search it, it's not there. But if you search it in today's one, definitely it's going to be there. Hope it's clear. So take a measure when you are using custom service or custom roles, and add a line item saying that there's going to be some operation work required. Hope it's clear, folks. Hope it's clear. I need an yes or no so that we can proceed further. Awesome. So thanks for the confirmation. So now let's go to the next part. One more option. So part 2, the same user, but he does not need to have access. Now if you see, we had already done this demo actually, so but let me just show it clearly here. The second thing is no need to have access to storage buckets. Basically you should not have access to storage bucket, sorry, no access to virtual machine, only access to one specific bucket. So with the role which we have created, if we just go, you can also try it yourself. So if I just create one more bucket, you should be able to see it. Let me check. Now you can be the side, the other side where you are going to check whether the roles have been applied or not. If I create one more bucket, you will be able to see that bucket also. You can upload to that bucket also. You'll be able to upload to that bucket also easily. Let me just show you that. Only to one specific bucket I want to give access. This is what I wanted to do. Let me show how we can achieve this. Similarly to one single virtual machine also we can give access, not to every virtual machine. What is a specific use case? Maybe there's a contractor. So he does not need to know every buckets, every virtual machine details, only one bucket he should know. So for that, how do we give individual virtual machines or individual buckets? We give access. So first of all, let me create a bucket because you people cannot create the bucket with the access you have. So I'm going to create a bucket. Batch 6 demo is what I'm going to create it as. So it should be unique if I'm not wrong. So for some reason the system is becoming slow. So batch 6 demo. Is this a unique bucket? Yes, it's a unique bucket created. Now, please refresh your screen, folks. And see whether you see the new bucket. And you should be able to upload the object into the bucket also. Let me know whether you are able to see the new bucket. Yes, you are able to see it. Awesome. So if I put a restriction like this, the group, which we forget about the email ID, let's use the group to be more interactive. Let's only give access to this bucket, not the other bucket. So it could be something like maybe there is some confidential information in this. Only you should get access, nobody else access. Or you are a contractor, only to this bucket you should get access. Something of that sort. How do we do is basically you use this show info panel, and the same thing can be done in the command line also. If you are interested, I'll show you it in the tomorrow's class. How do you do it in command line also? Whatever I show in UI, definitely it is possible in command line, and wherever it is required from the exam perspective, I'll definitely show you that in the command line also. So what I will do now is I'm going to remove you the access of, you'll still be able to create virtual machines, but what I will do is I will go to IAM. I will not give you access for the entire project. So what I have given the group the access is a custom role. Okay, I have to change the project. So maybe all of you folks, you can just click on your Google Cloud Platform link. It's going to come to your home page. Just keep it like that. The reason is there's a specific stuff which I'm going to do, which will revoke your access to only the storage bucket. So what I will do now is, what I have given you access is at the project. So now when I give something at IAM, Cloud IAM, if I give you access, it is applied to the entire project, meaning all the buckets you have, for all the buckets in the project, in this project, you will have custom storage admin role. But my requirement is only to a specific bucket, something of this sort, a specific bucket. In our case, it is batch 6 demo. Only to a specific bucket. How will you give access is never ever give it at IAM level. Just remove it. Just remove it. Something is really going wrong. Okay. So let me, what I'll do is I'll remove you at the IAM. I'm not going to give it at an IAM. So at, sorry, in the project, in this specific project, for all the buckets, you should not get access. I'm just going to remove you. So now you will not have access. What I will do is I will copy this group, go to my bucket. What I will do is select this bucket, and click on the show info panel. When I do this, what I'll do, add you the group, add the member, and the member is going to be, in this case, a group ID, and to that group I'm going to give access. So this is only at a specific bucket. So the custom role which I wanted to give is, and it's not going to show when you are at a specific resource, right? It's not going to show you all those IAM roles. The roles which is relevant is going to show. Now, even if you mouse over on your custom, we had 2 custom roles, but in this context, it is basically storage bucket. There's no reason to show you that custom compute admin role. That's the reason it does not show up, because the context here is only storage, that too only one storage bucket. So just give custom just give custom storage admin role, save it. Now, once it is saved, if you can go back to your storage bucket and let me know whether you are able to see the other bucket, learn GCP with Mahesh, that learn GCP batch 6, PCA batch 6. Do you see it, folks? Now, you have to refresh your screen first, only then you can see it. By any chance, do you see only one listing? Is it reflecting at your side? Are you able to see both the buckets or only one bucket, folks? Or you are getting an error itself?
I'm getting error actually in the storage when I click. You do not have any permission.
Okay.
I do get
So now, yeah.
error.
So now you have to use this link. Click on this link. So click on this link. Directly, you will be able to see the bucket. But directly you should be able to see the bucket. we are refining you should be now able to see it, and you can also upload an object if you want. Able to do it?
Yeah, I just uploaded it. It's I'm able to upload.
That's it. Let us refresh it. These are real implementation tips, folks. So I see already somebody uploaded. So this is how you can give access to only one bucket, nothing else. Now, if you try to click on back, you are going to get an error, folks, because you will not be able to list all the buckets in that project. Because the scope is only limited to one bucket. You cannot see other buckets, basically. So this fine grained level of access I can give if I want. But please use this option with caution. The reason is, if I remove you entirely, right? If I remove you entirely from IAM, even compute, I don't need to have. So for example, if I remove, I can totally remove you from here. Totally. It becomes little difficult to audit. It becomes, because usually people will check whether you have role or not, access or not in the IAM. But what we have done is basically we have given it at a specific resource level. So if you want to know something at resource level, you have to always look into your show info panel, only then you can see it.
But
So
Mahesh, we always need to remember this link, right?
you
Why?
have to
Because
bookmark it. You have to bookmark it. You have to bookmark it. So because I wanted the most strict policy here. So I don't want you to look into any bucket. I want only you to get access only to this bucket. So in that case, I have to only do this way. There's no other option. You are authorized to see that, so no problem. You just need to bookmark it. How do we get the bucket URL? You click on this bucket name, you copy it and share it. That's it, basically. So when you share it, right, you can remove this query string, because if you have multiple accounts, you can just remove this query string. Auth 0. It is, you can remove this and share it. So that's how you can do, Mangesh. Now, be very aware, be much when you're doing this. This is the only drawback when you give it at this thing. So now think like a user who wants to do something wrong. So possible options, like if he has an admin, storage admin role, before he leaves, wants to leave the organization, he wants to do something wrong. People can think in this way also. So only if you are a good hacker, you can be a good cloud architect. So he can add it like this. Nobody will come and usually audit this one. But you as cloud architect should be aware there's an option here. This is not like a back door. This was the actual requirement. You gave it. But if you forget to remove it here, when the person is leaving the organization, it's going to become difficult. So always there are few products which is going to have this kind of access, specific resource level. So make sure you remove it. Now, if I remove it, then only the complete access is revoked, basically. Now, if you refresh your screen, you will not have access to virtual machine. You'll not have access to project itself. For you, the project itself will not be showing. Only if you access the URL, you'll get the bucket details. Am I correct, folks? You'll not, now you don't have access to batch 6 anymore. Give it. Only the URL which I pasted in the chat will work, not the console.cloud.google.com directly going to batch 6. You'll not have access, because at the IAM, I have removed you. You people don't have access. Only to one bucket you have access, nothing else. So that's it. Is it working? And when you access your that's bucket, your project will not be there. It is going to be select a project, something like that. Yes, that's how you can give it. Sometimes the customer may ask you, how do I give this? Say, for example, this could be a typical use case, right? You want to share something to a customer. Maybe the customer wants to share it with their partners, somebody, and they don't want to give access to everything, only to a bucket. Now, when we go into our Google Cloud Storage class, right, we'll see how you can give access to not to a bucket, to an individual object. we can go to that level. So we'll look into that in storage class because that is more specific to storage. So we'll keep some this thing for also that storage class. So that's how you basically do your IAM stuffs. So before I forget it, let me just remove it. So as a cloud architect, keep this handy. Whenever it comes, you can use it, but prefer to use mostly at the IAM stuff. But if there is a requirement, very unique requirement like this, use it. You have something in your hand, use it when you require. Don't use it very frequently because it becomes difficult to audit here. So if I go to IAM, I can get the complete details, but here I have to use either console or there's a command line equivalent also. So it's going to become little difficult to audit it. That's the only thing. So good. So we got some good exposure on the IAM roles, all those details. Now, what we did for the 1 hour, for the past 1 hour was basically nothing but creating a binding and creating an IAM policy. So this is a screenshot of how it looks like in your command line. So you see this binding. You bind a user or even a service account to a role. This is called as IAM policy binding. So literally when you went to IAM, clicked on add button and add, entered a username, the email ID and gave a role, you are doing creating an IAM policy. All this time we were doing IAM policy only. Now, if you want to get the same thing in the command line, the way which we are going to do is simple. Go to our cloud shell. Go to the cloud shell. People with Java background will appreciate this command basically because usually in Java you have two methods, set and get method. So this is what you are going to use here also. So let me just show you this command. The same thing which you see when you go to your IAM. So your IAM, so meaning you see two service accounts, three people having individuals having access. This all information I can see it in my command line also. How do I do it? Using this command. Let me just show you. And this command could be important from the exam perspective, and it is already there in the cheat sheet. So if you just go to your cheat sheet, you should be able to see that command. You see all the stuffs which we explored. And there's also command if you want to explore the predefined roles. It's the same format, gcloud IAM roles describe basically. So that's the same thing. And how do you see the policy binding? Gcloud projects get IAM policy. You mention your project ID and you should be able to get it. So let me do the same thing here. Gcloud projects get IAM policy. For which project? I'm not hard coding it. So if I just do it, it's going to show me the result in more like a YAML format. It's more like a YAML format. So you see the custom roles which you gave to Mahesh, then the service account, then the other two users who's having owner. This is one format. Sometimes people are not so comfortable with this format. If you want to change the format, you can use, there are only limited formats available. JSON is one format. So JSON is more readable, I would say, because this is becoming very popular format. You can read this. Or if you want to redirect it to some file, demo.json. I can use via editor. You see the same stuff, folks. User. And the binding is to a specific role. So this role is only available in batch 6 project. That's the reason it shows us complete URL project / your project ID
roles, this thing. But if you are using a predefined role like owner, it's going to be just role/owner. Role/owner. Now this could be an interview question which you may get. Basically, can I share custom roles across projects, across 2 GCP projects? Answer is no. Custom roles which you create are basically to that specific project only. If you were to copy it, you have to do a get a permissions list, export that, and create one more time a new role in your another project. But your predefined roles, this is maintained by Google, so it's going to be available everywhere. So no need of any sharing. Okay, so custom roles cannot be shared. The roles cannot be shared across projects. Please remember. And when we go, we'll look into some more stuffs where certain resources can be shared between 2 projects. There are a few components which you can share. Like last week, Anil was asking about shared VPC. A network can be shared. So a resource, there are certain specific resources which you can share. But a custom role, you cannot share it because it is specific to a project. That's it. Now, if you want to make somebody slightly different, maybe I don't want Mahesh to have what? Custom admin, this thing. Let me remove him. Just edit it. Sorry, just edit it. I want him to give viewer role. That's it. Role/viewer. Save it. Now I have saved the file in my local system. Now what I will do is I'll use the same command gcloud. What I will do is I want to make this changes. So I'm just going to make it as set. From get, I'm just going to make it as set. If I do this, what's going to happen is Mahesh will have, that user will have viewer role. Now let me just refresh it and show you that. So I have not refreshed the screen. So this compute admin is going to go off. And when I refresh it, it's going to show viewer role because we changed it from the terminal. Instead of doing it in the UI, we did it in the terminal. So we use an option called as get IAM policy and set IAM policy. Let me just refresh it. You see that, folks, what we did in the terminal is reflecting. So this is how you can do it in the terminal. So a command is in the cheat sheet. You can refer to it at a later point of time. And we will also do one command called as add IAM policy binding, somewhat similar to this. 2 ways of creating a role is like you can bind it easily. There are 2 options. One is what we explored now, get IAM policy and set IAM policy. Tomorrow we'll explore about add IAM policy. This command is very, very important from the exam, meaning they may expect you to know this command very well, basically. So where do we get all these commands if I want to do a practice? So you have a cheat sheet. You already have access to the cheat sheet, Mansoor. You can go try it. You already have your GCP console, try it. So that was the whole reason of creating this cheat sheet. Try those things and you should be in a good position to get hands-on to that, basically. So we'll stop it here, folks. What we were doing, what we learned today was basically the identity, the roles, and how we do the binding. Once we do the binding, we get an IAM policy. So we'll stop it here. When we resume back tomorrow, we'll talk about resource manager, resource hierarchy, which was somewhat relevant to what Vijay was asking. How do the policy inheritance works, all those things. That's going to be answered in tomorrow's class. So when we look into those hierarchy.
Excuse me.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
out
Vijay.
of the syllabus, actually, I just want to understand this curly braces of JSON. Actually, is it possible? It's out of top. I mean,
so it's just
like,
a way. This is how do you represent it. So it's basically one is going to be an array or a list kind of stuff. So
so
if you put it in
where
a square
put
bracket, it's an array.
big,
If it's a
big
square
bracket.
bracket, it's an array.
Okay.
It's an array.
Single
Comma
element
separated.
will be covered with curly braces and array will be covered with a big bracket. Huh?
So usually the format is so you node. They usually call it as a node. So I hope I remember it properly. So something like this. So you start. The parent is going to be something like this. Parent. Then now, if this parent is going to have, say for example, let me get one example. So then the parent is going to have a child. You do this.
Yes.
Then this may have further. You use the same format. Hope I'm correct.
One more child.
This way. So you have a child. You have a child. Then this child, if it's going to have few this thing, so use this. So you start with flat brackets and then use your square brackets for your this thing. So basically for your child, something like if I just say demo 1 2 3, something like this. Now if you're totally new, right, you can use, there are validators available. So if you just search for JSON validators, what you have written, and there are editors also available, to visual code, all those things. They can also validate and say whether your JSON format which you have done is proper or not. So if I put it here, validate my JSON, so it shows something is wrong. So I can get that validation also done. This way you can create it properly. Did I copy it properly? Validate this one. Okay, so let me just see what is the stuff child should have. Okay. For now, let me just make it a simple like this. It's a valid JSON. So you start with flower brackets, your childs, you can have it as it's basically a list or an array is what you do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Any other questions, folks?
Mahesh, you already answered this question, but let me ask again. I mean, when we have the GUI, why we still need all this actually? I mean, even if, for example, even if GCP down or anything happen, if you see the history of the GCP from last couple of years, I mean, at least the console will be there quickly, right? So do we still
No.
need?
No,
Okay.
console will not be there. So you will have, sometimes the console will be there. That's the reason once when there was an issue with the console on that day itself, I created a video actually. I can show you that video where it was a real used this thing. So if I just search, it was not a complete console which went down. One specific service called as BigQuery was down. And I immediately did a video because many people used to ask me this question. So I thought, let me take this as an opportunity to show BigQuery console. If you search like this, you'll have a video which shows why one should learn. Where's that video? 2 interesting facts, bugs. Okay, this is the thing. So this video, let me just show it so that it's not true that it's going to always, the console is going to be always there. So one portion of the console may go down, specific service may go down. So here, so you see something, there was some issue with, let me put it in a high resolution. So they clearly mentioned there's an outage with BigQuery. So if I look into the, let me first put this in the chat so that you can look into it later. So when I do something in the UI, so I have put everything that, what is the date, all those things, so you can look into it. So they are saying there's some issue with the BigQuery console, and if I try it, it's going to show the console was working fine, only the BigQuery portion was not working. So when I click on BigQuery, it's going to show me like this. Now, at that time, if you were supposed to, now if I just play this video, at that time, if you were supposed to do something with BigQuery, now I click on BigQuery, it shows me this, could not load this portion. And you're supposed to do a real implementation, or you're in the middle of a POC. Will you say that the console is not working, I cannot work? That's not going to work, right? So that's where you have to know your terminal stuffs. That's going to help you out. So you can give a try. Then what I showed in the video is how I can do it with the help of my Cloud Shell. So I launch the Cloud Shell, start doing everything in the terminal itself. So I start listing my BigQuery list, I do everything. So that's what it is required. So that's the whole reason. So it's not only clearing the exam, but after you clear it, when you do this, you are going to use this very effectively. And believe me or not, slowly you'll become a fan of cloud, the terminal, because you'll have lots of issues with UI. And today itself, we saw a couple of issues. There was a bug with that service account. It was showing no access, but it was still showing you. And the project, when you switch between different projects, the UI will not switch. So there are lots of issues with UI. So UI is only for learning, onboarding. Once you have onboarded, prefer to use terminal heavily, even though you are cloud architect, you work as a cloud architect person.
Mahesh,
Yeah,
is there any Postman demonstration?
Postman demonstration, I don't have it. Maybe I guess
Because
couple
I
of
just, yeah.
I don't think I had. Okay, somebody had asked a question on Postman, if I'm not wrong. So I'll create one video, folks. Like in the YouTube, I'll create it. There was some few requests on Postman, REST API with Postman. Can we do it? I have done it in the past, so I'll do it. I'll upload it.
Please.
Maybe this week I'll
you.
upload it. Sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else, folks? Kumar, hope that answers your question. The console will have downtime.
Magesh?
Yeah.
Magesh, I have one question. So, it's just a general question. Like, if I getting on project like new customer for GCP, so before onboarding, and how do I do the assessment for like a IAM policy? So, is that like a value added we can able to tell to customers? So, just a general question. How?
So assessment for IAM is what you're asking.
Yeah, IAM.
Okay. So I would say if this is totally a new customer, totally in GCP, brand new, no on-premise anything, then instead of giving an assessment, right, you can create a solution document understanding their requirement. And one of the section could be IAM. So to fulfill your requirement, we need these IAM roles. We are going to use it. So in the design document, you can mention it instead of an assessment. You will do assessment only when you are doing, yeah.
Yeah, actually, normally they will come up with a design document. So new customer on, it means like they are already using a, GCP when we are onboarding to our, our company, so that we can, read the design documents and we want to standardize the IAM policies. No, is that any document is there or anything? So we want to
Okay,
consider.
so you mean to say you wanted to do more on a security assessment is what you're saying, to see whether they have used all the best IAM rules? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, not for full security. I want to only that IAM part.
So if
How
it's
do
only
we
for,
give that like?
okay,
Yeah, like that we
only
can give example.
yeah.
Sorry, example. If you ask about what are the department is there like compute team or database team, those are things. So we can do the kind of IAM level kind of design we can able to propose the customer. So this is what we are proposing. Like that, is there any best practice we can follow that to propose those kind of IAM? Yeah.
So okay, so two approaches. Okay, before I proceed further, so folks, we have stopped the class. There's only if you have questions, I'm just going to answer a few more minutes, and I'll also drop off. So if you are done, if you don't have any questions, you can drop off. We can see you tomorrow. So I'm just going to answer now the Vijay's question. So to approach Vijay. So now if it's an existing Google GCP customer, you have got into this project, you wanted to give some recommendation. This is the first thing. Is this what you are looking at? It's an existing customer. You wanted to give you want to improvise what they have done. Is that you are saying?
Exactly.
So if that is the thing, assume this is the project of the customer and you wanted to give some better recommendations, whether they have really done better or not. So what I will do is I'll simply go to the IAM. I'll go to IAM. When I go to IAM, Google has a column called as recommendation. So let me just show you. So the reason why I did not use batch 6 was it's a new project. So this is an older project where I have given many people some access, all the stuffs. So when I look into this project, it gives me a column called as analyzed permissions. Now there's one service account which is having an editor role. Now it shows out of 3,471 permissions, only 3,416 permissions are used. Roughly around 50 plus permissions are not used. This is a recommendation that why do you want to give more access, more privilege? Remove this. So this is going to give you one quick way of finding it out. Similarly, if you see here, 10 permissions are not used, but here everything is used fully. So this is effectively, they have used those that specific identity has used the complete permission. There are certain places where they would not have explored it itself. For example, I've given somebody, let me just put a filter. I've given this user owner, but look at the permissions or look at the resources which this user has created, used, all those things. Only less than 3,000. So meaning I have given him broad access. Go click on this. It's going to show what permissions you need to remove. So this is going to be the best way, I would say, because it's an existing project. You want to give recommendation. Look for this. You'll get some idea. Based on this, you build upon on top of this. Starting point is going to be looking at this column, Vijay. And it's going to show what is used, what is not used. You go and create. It's going to basically say you have to remove certain permissions. Hope that answers your question. That's the starting point, basically.
Okay, Makesh.
Yeah.
And is that anything if somebody any misuse that identity if you're coming before coming, is that any vulnerabilities I can able to find for the IAM role?
So that one, you need to do some look into the audit logs, then you can get it. So look into the audit logs, the
No,
activity
actually,
page.
what I'm asking, I just want to compare with Azure. Normally, how we can do that Azure. Example, there are global administrators there, right? So global administrator should not be add more than 2 or 3 members.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the thing we can say that is a recommendation from Microsoft that is also considered as a vulnerability. So global admin should not be more than
Okay,
that.
you are talking about that. Okay, so for that one,
Like
you have
Azure security standard, Mahesh,
security
what do you
management.
have?
Yeah, okay. So in GCP, you have something like this. So security command center is what you have in GCP. So in that, what you can do is it's going to give you a recommendation of those things. Say for example, if instead of adding a corporate user, if you have added a Gmail user, it's going to show you that. So it's not showing.
Yeah, similar like the one more vulnerability also like be in organization. So we just added our domain. So if any invite a guest user, that also we consider as a vulnerability. Like
You get
apart from corporate, yeah.
you get that. So you get that kind of a report in GCP with the help of a service called as Security Command Center. So which is under your Security Command Center. So it's going to give you a complete list of all the vulnerabilities which is present. How do you fix it also? It can give you that easily. So let me just show you that. And in the Google Drive, if you go to common folder, there are some white papers. one of the white paper is on this what is this CIS benchmark document
Yeah.
I have put, so you can look into that. That's basically on this only. So this one,
Yeah.
Internet of Science.
We also assign the CAS policy in Azure policy. Similarly, here also you can.
You have it here. You have it here. Now, if you see here, the Security and Command Center, it is currently finding me 6 vulnerabilities in my organization. So if I click on those vulnerabilities, it is going to show me what are those vulnerabilities and why it is called as vulnerability, because there is a benchmark. So if this is something, it's going to be vulnerable is what it's going to say. So what are the first thing? It is saying, I have not turned on two-step verification. Okay, let me just scroll up. It's going to give me, there is, where's that? Okay, there are some firewall rules open. So this is the first recommendation. Make sure it is not open to the entire world. Some SSH ports are open. Similarly, for users, I have not turned on two-step verification is what it indicates. So it's going to give me such stuffs easily, and it is also going to cross-reference it with a benchmark, CIS 3.6. So if I go to CIS 3.6 benchmark details, it's going to show you should not have firewall rules which is open to the world 0.0.0.0/0. So it's going to give you that recommendation. Similarly, if I have added any member who is a non-corporate user, for example, this one, non-org IAM, corporate login should be used instead of Gmail. Now this is valid. There's no vulnerability. Now quickly, let me go and add one Gmail user and you'll see what is going to happen. Let me go to a project website. So if I go to website and go to IAM, all the users in this project, it's a vulnerability, right? You are adding a non-Gmail non-Google user, non-corporate user. It should be a vulnerable stuff. It's going to show you that. And it's going to quickly scan and show. Sometimes it's going to take a little time, but let me give a try whether I can do that quickly and show you. So if I see here, put a filter on the type of users, there's only corporate user. Now let me add a user which is a Gmail user. So I'm just going to give him browser role. We'll talk about the browser role in tomorrow's class. Done. So this is a Gmail user. Now if I go to my org level and look into those scan, it's going to show somebody has added a non-corporate user. So that's an vulnerability as per some CIS standard. There's going to be some CIS standard for that. So if I just go to my it should be, if things are right, it should show as 7 vulnerabilities basically. You see 7. So if I just go to the vulnerabilities, it's going to show me that list. So now where's that? Corporate. Previously it was valid. Now when it did the scan, it is showing there's a non-corporate user added. Now if you want to know the details, click on it. It's just going to show the details. What is the user which you need to remove so that you can make it compliant. So if I click on this, so if you just want to do a recommendation, first do a command and security command center scan. You should be able to see it. Now you see this user is given a browser role. This is as per CIS standards, the benchmark. This is a vulnerability, and this finding is high severity. This is how you can do it in GCP. Hope that answers your question, Vijay.
Yeah, Magesh, thanks.
Yeah. All right, folks. I have a hard stop also, so I'm already running 15 minutes late. So we'll stop it here. I'll upload the recordings, and tomorrow we can resume back. All right.
So see you tomorrow, folks. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.